The world's best high-performance sailors are competing at the 49er, 49er FX, and Nacra 17 World Championships here in Nova Scotia, Canada. 280 sailors are battling it out over 6 days to reach the 10-boat medal race final, where the top 3 will fill the podium. The men's 49er and women's 49er FX are two of the most athletically and aerobically challenging skiffs in the sailing world. And the Nacra 17, sailed with a mixed female and male team, is a high-performance catamaran capable of hydrofoiling at speeds over 55 kilometers per hour. The championship for these 3 Olympic classes is hosted by a group of super enthusiastic volunteers at Hubbard's Community Sailing Association in a beautiful seaside town of less than 1,000 people. This is the most important regatta of the season for these athletes as they work towards Olympic glory at the Paris 2024 Games less than 2 years from now. Keep watching and enjoy all the action from Nova Scotia, Canada.
We really are at the business end of these World Championships in Nova Scotia. My name's Andy Rice, this is Chris Musler, Lisa Ross. It's getting very exciting. We've only got 3 medal races to go. We're in the middle of a really busy boat park, so excuse us if you hear the crashing and banging of taking masts and boats apart and shoving them into containers for wherever they're going next in the world. But now let's focus on what's going to happen next. We've got the Nacras to think about. Chris, what's the scenario in the Nacras?
Well, it's pretty easy to forget that we have a world champion in the Nacras, which is T10 Banty, that have gotten us second and thrown out a 20th and all the rest first. So they're going in this medal race, the clear world champions. So the battle's for second, and it's super close. It's virtually tied between the Italians, Ugolini and Jubilee, and then the finish, which is Kirkby and Keskinen, and then also the Gimson and Burnett. So that's 82 points, 87 points, and 88 points respectively. So it's a virtual tie, and we know it's still a little bit light out there. There's a lot of weed. GB had a chance to move clearly in second, and they dropped a lot of places in that last race because they had to clear weed off all 4 blades. So we know that there's a lot that can happen in this double points race, but this is really just a race for second place, and really a race to see whoever of these 3, of Italy or Finland or GBR, doesn't beat the other boats, they're going to miss out on a medal.
Okay, so really exciting 3-way scenario to look at in the Nacra. Now, let me just talk you through the 49er. You can just release that for me again. Thank you very much. In the 49er, we have got a runaway winner, just as we do in the Nacra. So Bart Lambriax, Floris van der Werken from the Netherlands, winners of the world title in Oman last year, and a fairly small fleet, have proven that they truly are world class because they've done it all over again, and they've done it with more than 20 points to spare, which means they can't be beaten in the medal race. However, similar to the Nacra, we've got a very interesting 3-way battle between Spain, New Zealand and Croatia. Now, the Fantella brothers from Croatia had a disastrous last race this morning. That puts them in 4th on 99 points. McCarty and Mackenzie from New Zealand are on 96 points, and Diego Botin and Florian Trittel on 91. So watch those 3 teams for a 3-way battle, which means, of course, no one can really get into a hard match race. It's a fascinating scenario. Lisa, we're about to talk about the FXs first, so we don't need to go into too much detail, but just tell us the scenario there.
Yeah, so with the FXs, this is going to be interesting because the gold medal is up for grabs here in this class. We just watched the FX race, their last fleet race, and we could see the Dutch, Van Holt and Dutz duke it out with the Swedish, Bobek and Netzler, and the Swedes got the good end of that stick, which brought this a lot closer together, and so now we're only within 5 points. So putting a couple points between them could mean that the gold medal will switch hands. The Spanish, Echegan and Barthelo, they had a great race this last race, and they kind of locked in their bronze medal, so they're going to be a little bit more cruisy in this race, but they could be one of the boats that ends up getting in the mix. It's going to be a lighter air race, just like the one this morning, so that bodes well for a lot of the rest of this 10-boat fleet, so it'll be a really interesting race to watch.
Yeah, the Dutch, both of them individually have won world titles before. They haven't done it together as a team. So that is a scenario they've been in before. For the Swedes, this is new territory, but they got the better of the Netherlands this morning in these conditions. They could do it again, couldn't they?
Yeah, they very well could. So, I mean, any team in this top 10 could win this race, but it's really going to be about the point spread. So I think we're going to see a lot of movement within the fleet this race, and we'll see what happens when we get out there.
Great. Well, just a few minutes to go, and we will bring you all the excitement of that 49er FX race, followed by the other two, the 49er and the Nacra 17. So stay with us for the next couple of hours, and let's find out who's going to win those medals. So there's a scenario on St Margaret's Bay, and the 49er FXs. We're down to the final 10. Lisa, give us a rundown, your analysis of the conditions.
Yeah, so it's pretty similar to the races that we saw this morning. We're seeing conditions in and around, the 7 to 9, almost getting to 10 knots, but it's pretty steady as far as the amount of breeze we're getting. But you can see that there are these dark little patches. As you look up the race course, you can see the little tiny dot of the windward mark there. This race course is shorter than the race courses that they've had for the previous races. So there will be a little bit of less leverage from side to side. But there's definitely some pressure differences out here. Those pressure differences are coming with shifts. And I have seen shifts on our system here of, upwards of 25, almost 30 degrees. So big shifts. They're not going to happen right away. It's not going to be auto tackers, but these athletes are really going to have to look up the race course, try and get into pressure, and really be careful, especially the top two, about any leverage that somebody's going to get away from them.
Okay, this sounds like good kind of conditions to go on the attack, and it could provide the opportunity for the Swedes, just on the right of picture, Sweden 77, to get what they need to get past the Dutch for the overall title. Chris, you've been touring the boat park today. What's your take on these top two teams, the Dutch and the Swedes?
Well, I had a really great conversation with Bobek and Netzler, and right when they came off the water, they are really, really relaxed. And you had asked me before, do they have what it takes to knock out the current world champion? And I have to tell you, when Odile with another crew in Oman won the world championships, she was, throughout that whole regatta, she was relaxed, she was smiling. They were really resilient when they had bad races. And I see that from the Swedish team. Every time we talked to them, they were smiling and happy and a little self-abasing. They talked about that last fleet race, and they were really deep in that race. They wound up getting even deeper on the first downwind leg. They said they had the miscommunication. They went to jibe. Rebecca said no, and then Vilma went through the jibe, and they lost a lot of boats in that. They put it behind them. They had a very logical approach, and they came back and they actually passed the Dutch team and put some places between them to put them in such really strong contention. Vilma is a lake sailor from Sweden. She said she loves these conditions. She takes it on as a challenge. And when they rounded that leeward mark, they told each other, they're like, let's take this one leg at a time.
Okay, let's take a quick look at results. And if we've got time to go to that interview with Bobek and Netzler afterwards, we'll do that. So that is the scenario, and it was all because of that race this morning, Lisa, that there's only 5 points between them. We saw Bobek and Netzler ride the best of those difficult conditions, and Van Aanholt and Duets really give away some good tactical position. So 5 points the gap. That's what we're looking at. Echegoyen and Barcelo are locked into bronze. No one can take that away from them, but quite a lot of place changing that can go on between 4th and 8th place. I think we've got just about enough time to get the Bobek Netzler interview, so let's see what they had to say.
Back in the boat park, talking about races 7, 8, and 9, just finished up today on day 3 for the 49er FX. And we were with Vilma and Rebecca from Team Sweden. How you guys doing?
Yeah, we're happy to be back ashore. It's been a tough day out there. Shifted to say the least, and big difference in pressure. We just kept on fighting until the very end.
Now, I saw that you had a race that's probably going to turn out to be your throwout, like a 31 or something like that. But it sounds like that last race wasn't feeling that great either. And so What was the feeling in the boat? Was it a feeling of frustration, or or what did you do to kind of start climbing your way back up in that last race?
No, I think what Wilma said, it's good to be ashore, but like our mentality is that it's just the race isn't over until it's over. And even though that 31 or whatever we got in this one race, we're pushing in the end, and every point counts. So it's just important to keep trying to catch up the boats in front, even though it feels like a lot at some stage today.
And what were some of the reasons why downwind? Was it just staying in little veins of pressure, or a little bit of luck? What was it downwind on the last race?
Yeah, and the last race we had a really good last downwind actually, and we separated from the fleet because we had quite a bit back towards the last bunch. So we jibed, saw some pressure on the other side and just hit it, and then we just flew into the finish line, which was quite nice. So
awesome. How do you think you ended up? Could you guess?
Oh, I have no idea. Mid-fleet maybe? Yeah. But happier than last, which we were at one point, so.
That's awesome. And looking at the overall standings now, without seeing that last race, strangely there wasn't like a ton of moving around in the top group, because everyone, we probably saw some familiar faces with you from the top in the back. Now looking forward to the rest of the week. I mean, this is a long series. You guys actually had a really great World Championship in Oman, I think, if I remember correctly.
No, we weren't there.
Oh, you weren't there. Okay. Maybe where did I see you last? At the Europeans.
Yeah.
So yeah, awesome. And so going forward into the rest of this regatta, it's probably too early to get nervous about anything, right? Just one race at a time?
Yeah, we're just halfway through the regatta, so we'll just keep on doing all the races we can, the best we can, and then we'll see where we end up. But yeah.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good attitude, because things are really changeable here. It's a transition of the seasons, so I think you have to be ready for anything. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, and we'll just keep walking the boat park.
So that was a few days ago when Chris was speaking to the Swedes. We've got 3 minutes to go to the start. Look how small that start line is now. We're back on the blue Peter flag. That's the blue flag with the white square in the middle. That means you can be over the line at the start and you can still go back and restart. But realistically, Lisa, if you have to do that, if you have to restart, you're toast, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty well the kiss of death for anybody here. We have seen in the past some mighty comebacks, but I don't think on a condition like today, it's going to be tricky, but it's not going to be something that you can leapfrog from a restart.
We're seeing Sweden in the middle of the line. We're seeing the Dutch right up by the committee boat as it stands at the moment with 2 minutes 15 to go. There's no sign of any particular desire to match race or to really engage. It looks like both teams are just going to see how things play out and just go for sailing as fast up the track as possible. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it might be a smart plan to just kind of feel out the first leg and see where they go, and then, try and maybe make something happen once they see how the chips fall. The breeze was in a little bit of a left phase there, and it's now clicked back a little bit right. You could see a few boats making their way over closer to the committee boat, resetting a little bit. The Swedes are looks like they may be leading out to the next shift. And interestingly enough, the Swedes and the Dutch have put the entire fleet between them right now. We've got the rightmost boat and the leftmost boat. So they're definitely really not paying any attention to each other right now. And they're going for their own strategy, and then they'll see, how it goes from there.
Yeah, who would you rather be in terms of positioning on this line? They're going for the pin for the Swedes or going for committee boat end for the Dutch?
I mean, we're not out there, so we can't really see the pressure on the water. But that would be the one big thing that I would be wanting to lead to the first bit of pressure. So I've got the wind looking at here, and it is going back and forth, but I think really it doesn't really matter about the shift. It matters about the pressure. You can see the Dutch are really close to the line, but with that P flag up, all they need to do is be behind the line at go. That 1 minute rule that we've seen with the U flag and the black flag isn't valid here. So they can be as close to the line as they want to be, as long as they're not over at go.
So they got the Brazilians to leeward of them. The Brazilians look like they might have space to accelerate underneath the Dutch, which they'll need to watch out for. 15 seconds to go. Sweden definitely going for the pin end, and it doesn't look like anyone's going to contest that. So it's within the control of Sweden to have a really good start as we go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and start, and it is a clear line, but the Dutch are stopped at the committee boat.
Swedes
and the
have
Swedes
a big problem here because it's a big left shift and they cannot make the pin. This is going to be costly for them. They're going to have to wait for the Polish to go by, not foul, and then try and flip over. So that last shift there was a big problem for them. Had they been able to get across, the Polish are going to be sitting nice and pretty if they can tack.
Yes, but that is a good get out of jail for Sweden. I thought they were absolutely done, but because that shift was so big, it gives them a second bite at the cherry. Chris.
That was an excellent recovery. I mean, you said it just right. Now, you know, the reality is this, when it's this light, it was light with a left shift at that start. The whole fleet was going so slow that if you stop, the delta is only like 1 knot or something like that. So right now, the fleet is still really flat. The angles are really broad right now. But it looks like people are actually doing really well at holding their lane. Obviously, Poland has their bow free, and I can't say, but I think the Swedish actually have the best exit in this whole fleet right now. They're in the middle of the course. They have a lot of options, and that's what you want in a medal race like this.
If we can fly over to the far side of the course, it would be great to get a closer look at the boats on the far side and see how things are going over there.
So this is the Dutch just tacking right there in the middle of the race course. So they actually started at the committee boat and kept going with the Brazilians. And now they're deciding not to let the Swedes split from them too much. I like where the Swedes went. That was a big left shift, and all the boats that are sailing off to the right, as long as there's pressure over there, they have been sailing a really big lift, which points their bow directly to a lot closer towards the mark, and they're making more way towards the mark, which is a big gainer for them, I think.
Right, but they have got an extra race on their hands. They've got to go 2 boats between themselves and the Dutch. For example, the Swedes winning and the Dutch coming fourth in a 10-boat fleet. So the Swedes still have a lot to do, but a really, really good recovery from a difficult situation. Chris, do you think that the Swedes have recovered? They say they're good at putting the past in the past.
Well, they certainly have. I know even just looking at this, you know, they've really recovered from that start really well. I mean, the tricky part here is the fleet is really spread out, but the Dutch team is in a perfect position to just stay in touch. And I think they're really lucky they came out of that. That group to the right, if there was any difference at all in the breeze, could have really extended and immediately been ahead, and then the Swedish would have been in control. We are focusing on that race because that's the race for the gold and silver. But we've got this whole other fleet to the left here that's everyone's on the same tack, and it seems like there's just that left shift is holding on.
Yeah, I mean, with that left shift right now, it's a long port tack all the way up. Because the wind is now going a little bit across the race course, they're basically sailing for a long port tack. Lanes are going to be really key here. Make sure your boat's going fast, and make sure that you don't have to tack on the knock. So anybody who gets flushed out of their lane, which I can see one person is, Great Britain, just got flushed out of their lane. So that's going to be costly for them because they're going to have to sail a big knock across the back of the fleet. But it's going to be a little bit of a drag race here. And waiting for the breeze to click back over to the other side.
Sweden
Right.
77 front of picture, doing their best in this race to try and make up the 5 points that they lag behind the Dutch, who are still in the gold medal position. You can see the gold, bronze and silver next to numbers 5, 7 and 8 in the leaderboard on the left-hand side. Spain is not going to move from bronze. That's going to be nailed onto their names throughout this race, but what we are looking to see is there going to be a changeover of the gold and silver discs for Van Aanholt and Dutz from the Netherlands and Bobek and Netzler from Sweden. The Swedes currently in silver medal position.
So interestingly, the breeze has gone even further left. Had the Swedes been able to execute that start, oh man, they would have been having a good race right now. But you know, they've got to put the pass behind them and they've got to keep going. They're a little bit to the right of the rest of the group, having a little bit of trouble in this lane as well. So it looks like they're going to be behind the Dutch, but just as they cross this, as they get around this mark. And we probably would see a course change from the race committee, and likely they'll try and square this downwind so that the racers will have a much more square downwind and next beat.
Anything can happen at the top of this beat, and what I love about these kind of conditions is even that last little third of the beat as they're coming up. We saw just even on the starting line, just that one little shift happened at the very end and changed the dynamics of that entire start. So I don't think this beat is over yet. We're gonna look to see what happens. That left shift has lasted so long. What goes up must come down. You know, it might come back.
Yep, let's see if there is a shift that the Swedes really need, but they're getting so far out to that ley line that even if the breeze were to shift right, it might not necessarily do them that many favors either. Lisa, you never like to see your teams get out to the ley line as early as this, do you?
No, and especially not right now, because if it does come back, the Swedes and the Spanish are so far out that they're going to be basically reaching into the line. Light air reaching in these boats doesn't really give you a ton of extra speed. So, you know, they're just going to try and manage their speed. Oh, well, I guess it doesn't really matter for the Spanish, but,
No.
you know, the Swedes have one less boat to contend with around the ley line anyway. We saw a little shot there of the American boat. They're going to, I think, have a nice ley line coming into the mark and round first, with a battle behind them, with the Dutch a little bit ahead of the Swedes.
One thing I think is really important to notice here with Bobeck and Netzler is that some people let one crew do all the moving around, but they're doing in sync. So when they want to load up, which takes a lot more coordination to feel the boat, but I think that's fantastic. When they load up the boat, they load it with all the weight, not just half the weight. And I think that's pretty awesome in terms of powering the boat through. And I'll let Andy take it into this weather, Mark.
USA 8 Roble Shea are first around the windward mark. They're not in our fight for the medals, but good sailing so far by America, followed around by Maloney and Hobbs from New Zealand, with Spain 5, Suarez and Cantero in a battle with Grail and Kunze going around together. It looks like Spain's just got the better of Brazil in fourth. There are fights for minor positions in this race as well, so a lot counts for a lot of people. Netherlands 1, they go round in the lead, crucially, and ahead of Melzaka and Jankowiak, who have made a bit of a mess of their windward mark rounding. And further back, look how far back the Swedes are. It's going to take an absolute miracle, maybe an error by the Dutch, for the Swedes to be able to get back into this now.
Yeah, that one little mistake, you know, is pretty crucial, and it all happened within the last couple of seconds. Extra, they were in the right spot, but needed a little bit more in the bank just to eliminate that risk at the pin. Especially with the experience that we've got with the Dutch up there, you know, you've got to think that they're feeling pretty comfortable right now.
Do you put that down to bad luck, or is there anything that the Swedes could have foreseen in the final 5 seconds that the breeze would shift like that?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is that, you know, I think they had a boat coming, looked like they were going to have a boat coming underneath them, and I think they sailed down a little bit to stop them from trying to win the pin, and that boat ended up wanting to start on port. So as it started to look bad, maybe they just could have bailed out and gone for a port start a little bit earlier. But they really didn't have a lot of room to pull that tack off. And so, you know, it was a pretty painful thing for them to have to experience.
Right, and even with a really clean exit, I mean, that left shift lasted the entire beat. So there really wasn't, you know, once everything was kind of cast in stone, once they started going out that beat, you could have said, oh, they may have been able to hitch back up and stay in touch with the Dutch. But, you know, we're backseat drivers here with this whole thing. It's that was a tough beat. Not a lot of passing lanes.
That's the problem with this kind of short course racing. You go from a 37 boat fleet or whatever they were before, you go down to 10. The whole course is more compressed. And that means the shift pattern doesn't have time to settle down from side to side, does it, Lisa? So you can end up with effectively a permanent wind shift.
Yeah, but it does actually seem like it is quite permanent right now. So we can't see what the sailors are seeing, so we don't know whether there's, you know, I can actually see out there on the race course, there could have been some cloud indicators that were leading the Swedes over there, which was the right thing. It just went, I think, a little bit harder than they were expecting. So
the angles can open up quite a bit on the downwind legs, as we know. It gets a lot light at all, and what we heard from some of the coaches is there's not a lot of, you're really going for a lot of pressure with the kite. You never just go slow downwind. You're always trying to plane. So as it gets lighter, the angles open up tremendously, and there's a lot more opportunities to gain. We saw with Bobek and Nacra the beautiful imagery we had from on board, watching them work in sync together. It's really beautiful to watch, but they're really paying attention and looking around very closely on the angles of the other boats if they can make gains.
So the Dutch here are going to go in for their jibe on the ley line. The race committee doesn't appear to have moved the leeward marks, but the breeze has stayed left, so I would expect them to be moving the windward mark so that we have a more square upwind. And maybe that will open up a few passing lanes to get some boats in the mix.
Not that much breeze here for the Dutch. When we was looking at the Swedes a minute or so ago, they were a little bit more, both of them trapezing off the side of the boat. So I wonder if there's a bit less breeze down here at the bottom of the course. Clutching at straws for the Swedes, but there the Dutch both get onto the trapeze, so the breeze looks like it's increased a little bit. And they are still in 4th place, with USA still leading, going round the left-hand choice of the 2 marks. But what have we got here? We got a change of course. That's the C flag, which means different women mark. But Poland 7 in the, that's one of the 49ers I just saw in the background there. So they're a spectator, just wondering why they were bobbing around, not really looking like they were trying very hard. But a different boat in a different race that we're about to watch. So everyone going round the left-hand gate mark. You can see the right-hand gate mark. No one's bothered going for that one yet. So again, it seems like the left at the moment is favoured. That doesn't mean necessarily it will stay that way. And the fleet are going pretty slowly at the moment, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. And the mark has been, we can assume maybe that the mark has been moved to the left. And so, yeah, there's, again, like it doesn't take much to park it. When you're going downwind, you're going even faster. So if you do stuff it, the delta is greater downwind when you make a mistake. But right now, we see, part of the fleet split going upwind right now. So we're going to have some little test to see what side comes back. But when the geometry of a course changes, we have to look at it anew. And the skippers and the crews take a little bit of time to adjust themselves. So we still have the majority of the fleet heading left, and the mark has presumably been moved left. So let's see if it balances out and the boats on the right can make some gains.
A minor race that we've got going on at the moment. We've got 3 boats on absolutely equal points for 4th place. So Robel and Shea on 155 points, same as Melzacker and Jankowiak from Poland, same as the Spanish Suarez and Cantero. So Robel and Shea doing everything they can to get 4th place. And after a bit of a shaky week for the Americans that probably hoped for better, to get a medal, they've really come back well, and they've sailed the second half of their regatta extremely well. They could end up being rewarded with 4th overall, but as I say that, Melzacker and Jankowiak go up a place, and now they're up into 4th. So let's keep an eye on that little battle. Sweden just tacking out onto port tack, but still a lot of work to do for Sweden to get back in on this race. Ignore the leaderboard at top left. That's not telling us the real story at the moment. So let's just take that out if we can. Chris.
And one of the stories here is Brazil. I talked to Kahena Kunz, Martina and Kahena, after the fleet race, and they know that they're racing for 5th place. Normally they've generally started out these big regattas over the last 2 or 3 years with a little bit of a deficit. And then they've generally ended up working their way up to the medal race and then getting into the medals. And right now they didn't leave themselves, they left themselves too steep of a hill to climb. And Kahena said they're really racing for 5th right here, so trying to do the best they can. On the tracker, on the screen, they look like they're in a decent place, but we haven't seen them on the drone yet. Let's see where they end up.
So Lisa, the Americans sailing well out in the front of the fleet.
Yeah, so the Americans are doing a pretty good job, I think, of just trying to have a little bit of a loose cover. They're not going from one side to the other. I think that's a safe bet right now. It does look like the breeze has settled down from that big track to the left that we saw on the first beat. And now we're seeing a little bit of right, some left. And on our last drone shot, I did see, some pressure moving down from the top of the course. It was hard to tell which side it was coming from, but again, that's what the racers are looking at to see, is it going to be approaching from top left or top right, and what's going to give me the most advantage as I approach the mark.
It's really great to see the American team being strong here. They've gotten third at the World Championships. They've medaled at a lot of the World Sailing events, the World Cup events, and we've really been happy, at least on the American side, with their progress. But they, they're always in it. So they're in that sweet spot of a campaigner where you're holding on to these podium positions or almost podium positions in a quad, and you have a chance to just pop your level up just a little bit. It's so nice to be close to that instead of just going down.
Yeah, we got a nice shot of Roble and Shea right here, and it's not easy sailing out there. It's choppy and it's light, so it was breezier this morning, so we've got some chop left over, and yeah, it's getting, the breeze is clicked down to, at the lowest about 6 knots. It's come back up a little bit, I think, for the girls as they round this windward mark, and but it's not easy sailing, and it takes a lot of concentration to keep the boat moving through the chop and going as fast as possible.
And very aggressive body movements through the tack, Chris. Talk us through that. Why are they doing that? Suddenly jumping out on the trapeze like that?
Yeah, well, these are super light boats, and when super light boats go through attack, they stop almost dead in the water because they don't have any momentum. The crew weigh more than the boat do. So when they come out of the tack, Maggie's job is to go, if it's really light, to go around the front of the mast and just yank down hard on the boat and give it a little bit of an acceleration to get it going on the track as fast as possible, and then they can get back into the fine tuning.
So very coordinated sailing between these two Americans, sailing the boat beautifully, struggling a little bit for pace in the stronger winds. It seems like the crew weights have gone up a little bit. That's significant. Look how much the Dutch have closed on the leaders. So the Dutch have really moved up well in this race, and they are beginning to cement their grip on the gold medal here for the 49er FX World Championships.
Yeah, so it looks like that little bit of pressure came a little bit to the left. So those boats have made a little bit of ground on the leaders in the race, but Roble and Shea are doing a good job of keeping everybody behind them, and even though they might not have been approaching from the best side, they had good positioning where they weren't going to lose very much. The Dutch are in charge right now, and I don't know if there's very much that the Swedish can do. It's hard to tell where they are on the race course, but based on their rounding, I think they were pretty far back.
Yeah, well, they need to get 2 boats between themselves and the Dutch, but they need to have the Dutch behind them. And they got multiple boats between themselves and the Dutch, but the Dutch are in 3rd place. So the Dutch have just got to get down to the finish, and they have comfortably won the gold medal as things stand at the moment.
Yeah, the Swedish have a lot of faith in their process, and they have a very positive attitude, but this is very tiring stuff throughout the race when you see someone who you want to beat so badly and they're just between you and their goal. So right now it's obviously it's not looking good for the Swedish. It's almost unassailable, but I bet you a lot of these athletes, they probably never break character. They never give up until the end.
Yeah, and the feeling on the Dutch boat, I think, is going to be one, a little bit of relief, and just knowing that they were able to execute when it mattered, and do it handily and put this away. A 3rd place in a race where you've got to keep somebody in mind is a tough thing to do as well, because again, you're not always sailing your own race, and so they've done a very good job here.
The Brazilians did a jibe set. They are in 4th place, and I'm not sure what Brazil thinks they're going to get out of that jibe set. It looked like they were taking themselves in the wrong direction as far as the finish is concerned. So I'm not sure what Martin Grael and Kayana Kunz are aiming for or what they've seen over there, but they clearly see some opportunity by jibing away. There are Swedes, and look how far back they are now. They are so far behind the Dutch, and the trouble is when you start getting desperate. You'll start to take gambles because they're a gamble. You haven't got much left to lose, but it really doesn't look like Sweden's got any hope of being able to get back to the gold medal now.
Yeah, and when you're far back like that in a fleet, you've really got to be hoping that the leaders are going, not making good decisions. And with the caliber up here, they are making good decisions, and so those gambles are usually on the wrong side, which gets you further and further and further behind.
Lisa, at this level, when you're in that position, at some point when things start to look obvious to you, do you ever look at your crew and just start whistling a song or trying to break the tension, or is it just never stop focusing until the end?
Well, it's always about the process. You're always trying to execute, and you've just got to go back to exactly what it is that you can do in that moment to get the boat going and to get the boat to the mark the fastest that you can. And that's what you're just trying to remind yourself, because this could happen in the middle of a series, or it could happen in the medal race. But as we can see, as the points come down to the very end, every boat counts. And so you're just trying to practice that mindset all the time, whenever you can, because it's so important to be able to get back to it all the time.
On the right, it's Alex Maloney and Olivia Hobbs representing New Zealand, and being chased by the Dutch, the soon-to-be crowned 2022 world champions, Adele van Aanholt and Annette Doets. And it looks like the Dutch, I don't know if it's our camera angle, but it looks like the Dutch have got a bit more breeze than the Kiwis.
Yeah, it's easy to see. If you want to know who's going faster, just watch the crew movements. And that entire time, Odile and Annette had been popping out on the wire, while it was going the opposite direction for the New Zealand pair, where they were sitting in the entire time. Now things are leveling out. I bet you when you see New Zealand, actually they're sitting in a little too, but things are leveling out. But it looks like they definitely advanced quite a bit. But they still have to get across the bow of New Zealand. And as we know in match racing, it's a long way around when you're trying to pass someone downwind.
Yeah, so, we've been talking about VMG, velocity made good. It's hard to tell from this angle whether the Dutch were sailing a higher angle, so a little bit further away from the mark to get bow out. But no, they actually were able to step across. Oh, that's the British there. So, no, that is the Dutch.
That was the Kiwis and the Dutch.
Yeah.
So the Dutch have got over the top of the Kiwis.
Yeah, so they did a great job getting some pressure and getting across the top of the Kiwis.
And the Americans actually look light there. They are leading in towards this finish, but I'm not sure it's done for the USA yet. It could yet be that the Dutch could be on the attack with the Americans. It looked like they had a bit more breeze, but we'll see when the Dutch come into view. We are looking along the finish line, one end of the finish line, bottom left, and then the committee boat on the right. And let's see when the Dutch come into view. It's actually quite close, but I think USA are just about going to do enough. Thought we might have seen a jibe from the Netherlands, but USA 8, Robel and Shea are going to take the win in this race. Ooh. And it looks like
the Kiwis may have got it back from the Dutch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here we go.
So well done to Maloney and Hobbs. The Dutch opened the door and they crossed in third, but does that matter? They are giving themselves the hug because they may not have won that battle, but they have certainly won the war. And they are both former world champions, but these high-fiving Dutch have never won together before. This is the team that wants to go and win the gold medal in Paris 2024 in yet less than 2 years' time.
And Annette becomes the first person to win 3 FX World Championships.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the most successful 49er crew of all time, you could argue, unless you put Kayena Kunz's 2 Olympic medals with Martine Grail ahead of that. But look how much that means to Adele van Aanholt and Annette Doets to have successfully won the World Championship. It's the 2nd world title for Adele. It's the 3rd for Annette. And Brazil is across the line, so disappointing performance for the Olympic champions this week, but they redeemed themselves towards the end of the week. Just their climb back wasn't quite good enough to get back into the medals. And it's going to be still to cross the line. Sweden 77 are going to take the silver medal, and Tamara Echegoyen and Paula Bartheló from Spain will take the bronze medal.
Yeah, so crossing the line, really far behind, but you got to think that once they can get this race out of their system, they're going to feel pretty good about bringing home a silver medal at this championships for the Swedes.
So there's a deal. Can't quite believe it. And Annette just out of shot. And they've nearly always got a big smile on their face, but a particularly big smile at the moment. Breaking out the Dutch
we have a
flag.
little bit of audio there. Maybe we can capture what they're saying.
So what a moment for these sailors. It's been a hard week. You've had to be good at everything. We started out with a really windy first day. Here come the Swedes, some way back, and looks a little bit sad to see them cross the line so far behind, but I'm sure they won't be sad. They're on the rise, these Swedes, yet to win a world title. They've come very close this week. But Vilma Bobek, Rebecca Netzler, a bit like the Dutch, have only just teamed up. They've both done campaigns in the past, but together. Oh, that's the Spanish. Sorry. So that's our bronze medalists, Echegoyen and Bartholow, who have got the bronze medal. That was a bit of a formality for them, sailing the medal race. And I dare not suggest that red Jenica might be the Swedes over there. It could be. Yeah, that is them. Okay, Sweden 77, still to cross the finish line.
They are, they're competitors. So, they came into this race after a great last fleet race, gave themselves an opportunity. All they had to do was but they had to put two boats in between them and the Dutch team. It was a big ask, and like our friend Peter Lester says, put it down to that long shift that lasted the whole first beat. They just did not have a chance to get right back at them.
Yeah, and they went for it. They were in the right spot. They were just a little bit too much in the right spot, unfortunately for them on that start.
Yeah, it was a minor error, if you can even call it one. Maybe just a bit of bad luck.
Yeah.
But not quite good enough this time. But you can be sure that sometime in the coming years, that Bobek and Netzler will be right back in contention for another world title. So, Lisa, looking back at the 49er FXs this week, they've had a bit of everything. They've had a really windy one. They had that really light and funky stuff on day 3. Just crossing the line now. The silver medalists getting the kite away. What's impressed you most about the Swedes this week, Lisa?
Well, I think just, as we said, and they've been calm all week, they are a new team and they don't have as much experience as some of these other teams that have been duking it out in the top 10. And they really have been sailing like they belong there. And that's been really impressive. And I think, there's their celebration. A little bit bittersweet for this race, but they've got to be really, really happy with that. They're a young team, and they've clearly established that there's good things to come with them.
I think for me, that pair is it's about attitude, right? So I think that if they keep that attitude, it's going to carry them a long way. They had that kind of really happy all the time attitude that Odile had in Oman, remember? Smiling every day. And it carried her through. Odile wasn't quite as dramatically smiley and boppy in this event, but I think that shows that she's maturing as a competitor. She's a world champion now. She's a double world champion. So it's just next level for Odile, sailing with Annette just breaking history. Being the first FX sailor to win 3 worlds. And I think that's fantastic. It just shows what a high level they're sailing at, and it's just so impressive to see that level of professionalism and see the Dutch just in that medal race. Okay, we have the win in our pocket. Let's keep pushing forward. I think just like Lisa was saying, they're sticking with their process all the way through to the end. It's great to watch these sailors mature, but just what a high level it is.
And Tamara Echegoyen and Paula Bartholow, they've got a bronze medal. They're not particularly happy with how they sailed parts of the week. I think they feel that they didn't put their best selves out there, but they haven't done a lot of sailing in recent times either. And Paula is studying to be a doctor, so she's been putting a lot of effort into her studies. So they haven't been fully focused. So with all that in mind, a bronze medal for the Spanish is actually extremely good. And once they go full bore back into their Olympic campaign for Paris 2024, the double world champions will certainly be a force to be reckoned with for the medals in Paris.
Yeah, and Tamara also just finished a degree this year. So if you think about these athletes, you know, to be sailing at that level and to be doing something as complicated and demanding as finishing a physician's degree or an engineering or business degree, I mean, that's the real deal. So it's really fantastic to see how hard they work. And this is great footage. It's great to see how happy they are. They've really earned it. Double world champions, you know, Odile double world champion, and Nat 3-time world champion.
Good job, guys.
Hug from the coach. What about Robles and Shea winning that last race? That's a good confidence booster for them. You're American Chris. They are knocking on the door of greatness. They got a third at the Worlds 2 years ago when you were there in Geelong 2020. What can they take away from this week?
Well, I talk to him every day during the regatta, and I talk to him in between regattas. And I think, you know, there's a maturity. Traditionally in American sailing, our medalists get into their 40s when they win medals. I don't know why that is, but there's a maturity involved in some American sailors in these very established classes. You know, I think they're just right on pace to do well.
So there is the double celebration. There's a preview of what we were about to talk about. It's the 49ers, and Bart Lambriax and Floris van der Werken have done enough already to win the gold medal in the 49er. There was a meaningful kiss there between Bart Lambriax and Adil van Aanholt. They're not just good teammates; they are actually an item, and they've even bought a house together. So how about that? I mean, what a golden couple for the Netherlands. And if those two go on to win joint gold medals at Paris 2024, what a story they will make back home in the Netherlands. Incredible depth of talent across both sexes in the Netherlands right now.
That's right. And if I'm not mistaken, Annette was a silver medalist in Tokyo?
Bronze medalist.
Bronze medalist, okay. Yeah, so it's still, you know, just a great legacy that they have right now. They've kind of got it. You know, Denmark has had a really strong legacy in the 49er. Obviously, Spain does right now, too. But the Netherlands, between the 49er and 49er FX, they have something really special going on.
So, I mean, it's great for those two, that Adil and Bart and their respective crews have both won the gold medal. I sometimes wonder what it must be like if one of those two is having a fantastic regatta and the other is having an absolute stinker and not even in the medals at all. That must be a difficult conversation in the evening over dinner.
Well, the one thing I know when I look at really successful teams, and we'll be talking about the Nacras later on, you know, last night we saw the whole Nacra squad from Italy sitting together as a team, even though they beat the snot out of each other when they try to qualify for the Olympics. But I think the Netherlands is the same way, and luckily across, that's what's so wonderful about the 49er 49er FX, is the sharing of resources, the sharing of knowledge and experience. The Dutch team is really strong with that. Now, let's not forget, there are teams, you know, Bart's former team member is now, you know, teamed up with someone else and was sailing in the Silver Fleet. And so, you know, that team has more depth than we're seeing right here. And it's really great to see a nation being really strong. But, you know, this Swedish team, like you said, hey guys, is really young. And they're junior world champions. And it's great. You know, we've talked to a lot of sailors this week about just starting out their Olympic campaigns. And Sarah Newberry and the Nacra said, you know, everyone is in a different place in their lives, in a different place in their campaigns, and they have different goals for this event. Not everyone is aiming for the podium. You know, I'd be wondering what the statistic would be if you interviewed everyone or did a survey. You know, it'd probably be a very small number of people, and then their goals would be all over the map. So when we look at the team like Sweden, you know, I bet you know, after some retrospect, even though they set themselves up for victory here and were not able to achieve it, I mean, obviously that's going to be a very formative thing for them. They probably achieved their goals. And one more thing about goals, I talked to Ravi Parent, who is coaching one of the newer Nacra 17 teams, and he said his team was a little disappointed with where they ended up. But what he wanted to remind his teammates was, or his, you know, the sailors, is that it's pretty easy to forget your goals when you start to overachieve them. And so, you know, when the team says, "Wow, I wish I had done better," and I ask them, like, "Well, if you got fourth, would you be coming out of this wishing you'd done better? She said yes. And Ravi said, well, hey, remember the goals that we set at the beginning of this regatta? You guys blew them out of the water. So so I think that's really important to remember that everyone has different goals. So when we look at the Swedish team and we look at Tamara and Paula, you know, the 3 medalists here, I think they, I bet you they've all kind of achieved their goals in a certain way. And some of those goals weren't just medals.
Yeah, and a lot of times, you know, when you really get down to the nitty gritty, goal setting for these teams isn't necessarily about the outcome. It's they're looking at improvements, things that are really going to get them to their ultimate goal, which is those medals around their necks at the Olympic Games. And when you focus on the outcome all the time, you may get caught up really regretting races and taking risks in the middle of regattas. And that's the process that athletes go through. You see those early performers, young athletes who come out, they do really well, and then they drop off the map for a while. And that's where that expectation and goal setting really comes in to get those seasoned professionals and performers like you see in the Dutch. And that's where, you know, you can see all the hard work and all the mental performance coming into play there. And they're able to execute time and time and time again. What a performance by these ladies.
Thank you.
Adil always, on the shore, she seems very relaxed. She's always ready to chat. When we put a camera in her face, she's fine for that. So is Annette. Other teams don't want us anywhere near them. What's the better approach for the Olympics when there is so much media, when you have limited control on your privacy?
Well, I think for some athletes, you know, it's all about personality. Some athletes find it really easy to share anything at any time with anyone, and others, you know, possibly not. So I think it's about training, about expectation of what the Olympics actually is, and practice as well. So, you know, a lot of teams do quite a bit of practice of, you know, let's make sure that we're ready for the games, that we're not being put in situations that we haven't been put in before. So if you're an athlete who doesn't necessarily like or is comfortable with interviews, you know, your support network's probably going to ask you to do that kind of thing before the game. So at least you may not like it and you may not feel super comfortable with it, but it's not going to throw you off your game at the Olympics, and that's what you want to have happen. And that can go with anything from the security, the travel. These teams, when they go to the games, they've practiced everything beforehand.
Yeah, and to me, that's one of the big differences between the big teams with resources that can do media training and some of the smaller nations where you're having to do it on your own. Now, we are going to get into the 49ers in a moment. Now, we've already said that the gold medal has gone to Lambrechts and van der Werken for the Dutch, but there is an interesting three-way scenario between Spain, New Zealand and Croatia for the silver and bronze medals, and one of them is going to be disappointed and come away with nothing. Now, the team that was the biggest threat to the Dutch this morning is the Fantella brothers, the 2018 world champions. Chris, you had a conversation with the Fantellas a couple of days ago. Let's go to that video now.
2022 49er Worlds. I'm with Mihoville Fantella. Yep. Awesome day today, Mihoville. Yep. I said, what an awesome day. You're like, I don't know, man, in the 49ers. What happened today?
Yeah, first race we finished 20, and then we have like 5 and 1. But in this first race we were around the top 10, and we caught the big weed on the water, and we lost all the places we around the last on the upwind mark with a big gap. But we managed to catch maybe 3-4 places. So yeah.
So it's not like it's going anywhere. You actually have to take it off.
Yes, put my hands down and take it by the hand.
Now, we watched you in the aerials. We had some great aerial footage of you both.
Yep.
The Cunningham on, super tight, sail really flat in that last race. Really great.
Last race, the wind picked up a bit.
Yep, really great boat handling. Was that like max D power on everything?
No, not yet. Not like the first day. So it was, I think, 16 knots. So definitely a bit more cano and flatten out the sails.
And we saw you bobbing and weaving through the weeds in those aerial shots. We also saw you with a little line dragging, and then Mihoville went in and yanked it back in.
It's Simon's job.
Maybe it was your job, but you did his job.
Yeah.
So, after that first race, getting a little bit deep, we lost track of you for a second there. Did you have to have a conversation with yourselves and be like, hey, let's get our act together? That was a little outside of our control.
Yes, definitely. After the finish of the first race, we said, okay, let's forget about this. It was weird, it was a bad luck. Speed is good, our sailing is really well, so let's just keep on moving forward, and that's what we did in the second and third one.
And it feels great, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's good.
Great, guys. Well, I will let you put away your boat. Awesome day. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Right. So the Fantella brothers, they are in the battle for silver and bronze, along with the Spanish Botín and Trittle and McCarty and Mackenzie from New Zealand. So Fantellas have been there before. They've won the 2018 World Championships. Botín and Trittle, they won the European Championships earlier this year in Aarhus, Denmark. And the new kids on the block are McCarty and Mackenzie from New Zealand, looking to maintain that incredible tradition set by Pete Burling and Blair Tuke, who have been the dominant force in 49er sailing for the best part of the last 10 years, but have now moved on and are permanently in the America's Cup and Sail GP world. So they've moved on from their Olympic sailing, but New Zealand has not moved on from top-level 49er campaigning. Let's take a look at the leaderboard and just see the scenario. So there, Lambrechts and Van der Werken, 67 points. The gold medal has already gone to them. Then the scenario, 91 points for the Spanish, 96 for the Kiwis, 99 for the Croatians. With a double points race and an 8-point gap, anything could go any way. And the Chibatek and Piasecki in fifth have a theoretical shot at the medals, as well as do Dunning, Beck and Gunn from the Kiwis, but they need the stars to align for anything to happen. And then we've got Megendorfer and Spranger from Germany, Bildstein Hussel from Austria, Wen and Liu from China. I think the first time we've ever seen a Chinese team in a medal race, so an incredible performance by the Chinese squad. Buksak and Wijbicki from Poland in 10th. How many minutes to the start do we have?
We're about 3 minutes. We can see that the P flag is up again for this 49er fleet. And the breeze, as you can see, the breeze has died down. So we're in the average knot of 6. When the FX started, they were around 7 or 8. So this is going to be a game of inches and really trying to keep these boats moving, going fast, and looking for any pressure advantage you can find out there. There's a nice drone shot. You can see that again. There is pressure differences, but they're a little bit less, and these guys are going to be trying to eke everything they possibly can out of them. Lane holding is going to be really, really crucial and really tough. Those that can get out, get their clear air, not have to do a lot of maneuvers, and get out to the edges are gonna be looking good.
2 minutes to the start. It's Croatia closest to us, just sailing away from us on port tack. And it's Netherlands 1 sitting up by the committee boat, just as Netherlands 1 in the FXs was sitting up by the committee boat earlier. But there is nothing at stake here for the Dutch. They've just got to finish this race, basically. Doesn't matter if they finish last, they've still got the gold medal. So what we're going to focus on is this three-way battle between Spain, New Zealand 18 and Croatia for the silver and bronze medals.
Yeah, so two boats out of this group are coming back on port, and they're kind of starting below this group. They like the committee boat because there has been a little bit of a right shift as this countdown has happened. So we'll see who can actually hold their lanes and stay on starboard tack into what may be the next shift.
Coming up to 1 minute to go, you'll see the blue Peter flag come down on the committee boat. Down it goes, and standing absolutely still next to the committee boat is Netherlands 1. And all the boats holding position, Croatia 83, one of the contenders for the medals for silver and bronze, currently looking like they are in control of the pin if that's what they want, but it looks like they're going to look to start a little bit further up the line as things stand with 30 seconds to go. And the Spanish are further up. You can see the yellow and red on their sail, on their black mainsail. They are much closer up to the mark. The Croatians on the right-hand side just tacking back to close the gap with the rest of the fleet. And just to the right of New Zealand, one second boat down is McCarty and Mackenzie from New Zealand, the other contenders for the medals. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's going to be a clear start. And Croatia a little bit back from the line, but at least they've got off. They could have had a better start than that, but Shime Fantella was telling me the other day, very hard to get a transit because there's a lot of trees here, but they're all green.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot of major features out here. There's no city, there's no buildings, so you know, there's a few houses, but it is pretty hard to take a transit. Just one thing to note, you know, the Dutch, the true champions that they are, they were not holding back from that start, even though this is a bit of a victory lap for them. They were gunning to win the committee boat, which is the favorite side of the line. The Kiwis have got a really nice start, and they are in that mix for a medal. So that was a good start by them. So that's the So that's Marchi, yeah. And
looks like the Spanish have been bounced out of the front row. So the Spanish, I don't think, wanted to tack where they did. I think they were forced to tack, and the Dutch have also tacked away that way. So life a little bit tough for Spain 74 on the right of your picture. Croatia 83 doing okay, holding its lane, but Poland 7 looking particularly good in the middle of the pack right now.
Yeah, it looks like these boats over here that started and stayed on starboard are getting a little bit more pressure. Every now and then you can see the booms, the mainsail go out and then come back in, and that's them getting a little bit of pressure, releasing it to keep the boat tracking and moving forward, and then they'll squeeze it back in when they can meet that pressure with their bodies. So that was a nice little shot there. The Croatians are doing a really good job on the Kiwis on their hip, and there is an advantage to start below so that you can get your bow down whenever you can. And with this little bit of left pressure and left shift, they're doing good things on the rest of the fleet.
So things looking pretty good for Croatia on the left-hand side, but of course the risk on such a short course is if you're going to start at the pin, you've got to put enough distance on the other boats on your windward shoulder to be able to tack cleanly across them. It looks like the Croatians are getting to that point. It looks like if they were to put a tack in now, they could get across New Zealand 45. And would they be able to get across Poland 7? They're getting so close to the ley line that probably when they tack, everybody else will want to tack anyway. So this is a pretty strong position for the Fantellas right now. And so far in the battle for silver, things are looking up for the Croatians.
Yeah, it is. And that all came from their positioning on the start. It was right favored line, but all things being equal, unless you're seeing something out there, if it is going back and forth, a good position is to lead into that next thing. Now here they go. I think they are going to have to duck the Polish and go back, but I think they feel like they're getting pretty close to the ley line, and they don't want to get hung out too far.
Oh, it looks like you're going to have to duck Germany 22 as well, and Spain 74 from being bounced out of the front row earlier. That's actually put them into some kind of better breeze on the right-hand side. So Spain actually slightly got the legs on Croatia 83, and these are two of the teams that we are looking to watch very carefully, with New Zealand 18 just going to duck the Dutch, I think it is, in the middle, or it could be the Austrians, I can't quite tell, but it's probably McCarty and Mackenzie who are struggling the most out of these three. So at the moment, as you see top left, Botin and Trittle now leading this race after a poor first minute. That puts them in silver medal position. Fantella's in third, or now fourth, in this race in bronze medal position.
Yeah, you got to think the Polish there, with how they poked out of that group. The Croatians really missed their chance to get across when they were legged out. They couldn't quite get across the Polish early on as they were in that lefty, and now it's come back again, and they missed the jump on that.
Yeah, and good sailing by ESP 74, Botin and Trittle to wriggle out of a difficult situation where they were being dictated to, and somehow they found themselves into a clear lane and have a marginal narrow lead in this race and are really well positioned in the middle of the race course.
It's going to be tight though. All three of the contenders who are looking for colors of medals from silver to bronze are in that top group, trying to put boats between them, and so we'll see probably some aggressive moves, especially as we get down to the leeward mark, where a lot of things can happen.
Yeah, there is plenty to go on this 2-lap race right now. ESP 74 on a pretty good heading, and Croatia 83 falling down into the Spanish line a little bit, so things getting better for Botin and Trittle as they approach the starboard ley line. And New Zealand 18 further over. They've just tacked, but they are gasping for a bit of clear air right now, the Kiwis, so that they are struggling, these top 3 contenders for the medals.
Yeah, the Croatians have really fallen off, and you got to wonder if they have a little bit of weed or something, because they've fallen off of the line of Spain and the boats to windward. So, there might be something going on in their boat, and hopefully they'll be able to fix it moving forward.
Just on the left of your screen, you see Spain tacking their final approach to the windward mark for the first time round and crossing clear ahead of the Fantellas, who are the boat just to the right of them in your picture. And it looks like Spain is going to be ahead of all the other port tackers coming across, whereas Croatia is going to be in a bit of a battle with Poland 7 as they come back towards the windward mark. But actually, it looks like there's going to have to be a double tack for Spain. They're going to tack close on top of the Poles, and then the Poles are going to tack at them. So life a little bit more complicated for Spain than they might have thought 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, and the Croatians really like to see that in front of them, because that just compressed the leaders to their position. So now, they're close to bow astern around the mark, whereas before, those 2 leaders might have had a little bit more of an advantage.
That's right. So the Spanish have to look over their shoulder for any attack from the Polish. Both boats have now got their Jenicas up, and they're pulling, with Florian Trittle controlling the blue Jenica on the Spanish boat, and around go the Croatians in third, Germany 22 in fourth, and Dunning-Beck and Gunn from New Zealand going around in fifth. But the New Zealand boat that we're watching for the medals is New Zealand 18 on starboard, with China just managing to sneak through on port tack. So McCarty and Mackenzie with a lot of work to do, currently sitting in 7th or 8th position in this race at the moment.
Yeah, the New Zealanders just got caught a little bit out of the pressure. I think there was a little bit more pressure, kind of that top left, with that group coming across, and both the Dutch and the New Zealanders were a little bit out of the pressure as they approached the mark.
Drone is just flying over New Zealand 45, Dunning-Beck and Oscar Gunn, one of the top 2 Kiwi teams, but McCarty and Mackenzie, the ones with a more realistic chance of a medal here. Now we're looking at the back of the mainsail of Croatia 83, the Fantellas sitting in together, just going into a jibe. Poland 7, the furthest right boat as we look at them going downwind. And it's looking very light indeed, which does open up the possibility of opportunity in these light winds.
So when the Croatians jibed there, when we saw, they got jibed on by the 2 boats behind them, and now they've had to jibe back. And they were right underneath. You can see all 4 of those boats, and they were underneath all of those kites. And so they've had to take another jibe out to clear their air, get out of that pack, and try and make something happen over here. So we'll see if that's costly for them, or maybe that pushed them out to a side that might end up with a little bit more pressure as they approach the mark. So
looking at the Polish, there's not much sign of that, but there's not much sign of much wind anywhere across the race course right now. So that really that's probably a good thing for Croatia right now, and maybe an even better thing for McCarty and Mackenzie back in 7th. There could be a reset. And possibly an abandonment. I mean, that's not beyond the realms.
Yeah, right now we're reading 7 knots, so we're still not at that 5 or 4 knot range. It is still raceable, but it's getting pretty light for these guys. Spain has done a really good job of sailing their angles, but keeping in touch and keeping their bow between the other boats in the mark. They're going to be a hard one to catch right now, and it looks like they've got a medal wrapped around their neck at this point, and they're doing everything they can to be as conservative as they can in these light conditions.
And meanwhile, there are 3 starboard jibers coming across the line of Croatia, so it's going to be even harder for Croatia to close the gap on the Spanish, because there's a lot of blockers between them and Botín and Trittle leading this race right now.
Yeah, so just behind the Spanish there, they did a really nice job jibing in front and trying to lead back to that side. There is a traffic jam behind them, and the Croatians are right in the middle of it. So one thing it does do is create a lot of boats, but they've got to suck the Spanish back into that traffic somehow.
But what are the Spanish going to choose at the bottom? If they go around the left mark as we look at it, there's going to be less bad air from the other boats. But maybe they prefer the breeze on the other side. It's a tricky one to call.
Yeah, I think it's really going to be, where do they think people are making gains on the downwind, and where do we think the pressure is? Because I think the pressure is really key here, and that was really how they got back into this race on the first windward leg.
So it looks like they have done the jibe to go around the left-hand gate mark as we look at it now. And maybe the best of not very much breeze is on the left-hand side of this second windward leg. But if anything is comfortable at all, which it isn't really in these conditions, that is a fairly comfortable lead for ESP 74 right now.
Yeah, so New Zealand's brought themselves back in the hunt with Croatia. They went all the way over to the right. They only had a couple of maneuvers, whereas there was a lot of traffic for the boats on the left-hand side of the race course, and they've closed a lot of distance. There you can see New Zealand with the forward-most boat of those blue kites. They've made a lot of distance back on this pack, so they're going to be trying to make something happen to bring in that other medal.
Well, and as things stand at the moment, with the Fantellas dropping back to 6th place, it's been a bad run for the Croatian boat, and McCarty and Mackenzie are now breathing down their necks. That means McCarty and Mackenzie have the bronze dot against their names. So there is a medal change as things stand, and that could be the interesting battle to watch between Croatia and New Zealand to see who gets that bronze medal, because the silver medal is looking increasingly certain for the Spanish leading this race right now. Croatia just bobbing around the mark there. And this is New Zealand with the blue Jenica about to drop behind them. Croatia going through a very, very down speed tack to get onto port tack. But they're clutching at straws, and they've got it's the Dutch, the gold medalists, coming down with the black Jenica. Croatia's just got ahead of them. But this race is not going well for the Fantellas. They're smart sailors, but they are being dealt some difficult hands. What do you see on the far side, Lisa?
Yeah, so that pressure that the New Zealanders, I'm surprised the New Zealand maybe went to that other mark, because it just looks like the Chinese rounded the right-hand gate and they're off in some really nice pressure. And that, I think, is the pressure that the New Zealanders hooked into when they came down that run. That's why the Croatians tacked out, and I think you can see that they'll try and get their nose into it and then possibly go back. But I think it's probably hard for these sailors to see the pressure on the water. The cloud cover is making it very flat, so that there's not a lot of contrast going on the race course. So this is a really hard condition to sail in.
And when you're negotiating a busy leeward gate, it's really hard to keep your head out the boat and see the opportunities around you.
Yeah, and the complication in a medal race also of thinking about the numbers and trying to take control over situations so that you can actually make the numbers work in your advantage. Sometimes you're putting your boat in a position that you wouldn't normally if you were in a fleet race.
Spain leading out to the left-hand side, but Cibatek and Piasecki, Poland 7, they've got back on pretty good terms with the Spanish, so it looks like the Polish have closed the gap a little bit, and that's the Spanish there in the middle of your picture with Germany 22 down in the bottom right-hand corner. That's Meggendorfer and Spranger, who've had a really good regatta this week. The best of the German teams and the only Germans to make it into this 10-boat final, the medal race.
Yeah, so I think that all the boats have kind of hooked into this little bit of right pressure. It is a little bit right, and you can see that all the boats now are on starboard tack, and they're positioned. The boats on the left are hoping that there's going to be a little bit more left pressure coming down. The boats on the right are hoping that this righty holds for as long as possible so that they can get some bow out and over on top of the left boats.
And I thought the Spanish looked fairly comfortable going around the leeward gate a few minutes ago, but I would be looking over my shoulder at the boats further over on their right. It's very difficult to defend a lead in these conditions.
Yeah, you know, you can see Germany's wasn't happy about the prospects of more to come from the left, and so they're taking their hits to get over to the right. It does look like it's a little bit darker over there where the Polish are, and you know, you can see the New Zealand and Croatia there. They're trapping a little bit more possibly than the boats that we saw on the lower left.
Interesting that Spain is using one of the new black mainsails, whereas the winners of this competition, the Netherlands 1 team, are using one of the older see-through mainsails, same as Croatia, just tacking onto port. So this transition from the old sails to the new sails, there doesn't seem to be a lot of boat speed difference between the two. Looks like Spain might be giving away the lead. Can they get across the front of Poland 7? I don't think they can, and the problem for them is that China is also close behind. So as they duck the Polish, does that mean they're also going to have to duck the Chinese as well? So what a turnaround. And Lisa, you mentioned that better breeze earlier that the Chinese had found, and it's come really good for them. I mean, they're fighting for the front of this medal race right now.
Yeah, and the New Zealanders behind us are all the way out on the left, and I felt like they were the ones who had come down that run and really hooked into something there. So it'll be interesting to see how they saw that play out, and why they chose that gate. But yeah, China and Poland are looking, you know, really good right now, but they're letting the Spanish go a little bit further right. They're quite close to the port ley line, so it's surprising that they didn't go back over with the Spanish. They're in right numbers, so I'm just wondering if they're waiting for the bows to go down at all. But I'm not sure it's going to go down before they get around this mark.
Now, it could be that Cibatek and Piasecki, who are outside chance for a medal, might actually have the slenderest of grips on the bronze medal if things were to stay the way that they were. So we need to keep an eye on that. Didn't really have them as serious contenders for a medal with the scenario that we had going into this, but it is possible if they win this race that they could just about get the bronze medal.
And there, the Chinese have tacked with them. I was going to say they've got to get over top of the Chinese. It was going to be tight because they're tacking onto a knock, which is never feels good. And then the Spanish have to go. Look at how much the Spanish have lost here. So they did, I think that was a good call, the Polish and the Chinese. They did get a little bit of a click back to the left, and now they're coming across basically bow even, but directly to windward of the Spanish team.
So Cibatek and Piasecki, briefly we saw that bronze disc next to their names, but then it slips away. So the points are bouncing around all over the place. Even though the Spanish have lost the lead in this race, they still have a buffer to the rest for the silver medal position. But things are really tight now between McCarty from New Zealand, Cibatek and Piasecki from Poland, and the Fantellas from Croatia, all within about a point of each other on the overall standings as we see things right now. So there is a three-way battle for bronze. Spain is not in the clear for silver. Spain has still got to sail a good race, but even though they are back in 6th or 7th place now, it's okay for Spain. They've just got to hang in there, and it doesn't matter to them that, for example, China's up there. Even Poland they can cope with. They just don't want the Fantellas to get through them.
Yeah, I mean, Spain is looking pretty good based on who is behind them and who is ahead of them when we're talking about that fight for bronze. And, you know, for them, I think they just need to stick with the Croatians and the New Zealanders, and they'll know that they're pretty locked into their medal. The Chinese just did a really good job of the Polish on this lane, and we're able to get around the mark in front of them. Now, if you were the Poles, you're going to really want to try and pass that Chinese boat to get an extra boat between, because that's going to cost them a medal if they can't get across the Chinese boat. So their best chance at getting that bronze is to win this race right now.
Absolutely. And who would have thought that a Chinese boat would be affecting the outcome of these medals? Not only the first time a Chinese boat in a 49er World Championship medal race, but leading a medal race on the final run down to the finish.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. The work that's obviously been done with this program, both with the FXs and the 49ers and the Nacras, is impressive. I mean, they've really come on strong. They've kind of unleashed their program at this World Championships, and it'll be interesting to see how it develops going into the games.
And they're strong in all conditions, because we've seen all conditions this week. So that's Poland 5 going around there. And now we see Spain, who just 3 minutes ago or so were leading this race fairly comfortably. And now they're going around in 7th, still holding on to the silver medal, because importantly for them, the Croatians are behind them. And then come our gold medalists, pretty much already crowned, not quite with the medals around their necks, but Bart Lambrieks and Floris van der Werken already done enough to secure gold. Croatia jibes away. Is that a jibe of good intent, or is it just a gamble? Is it a last throw of the dice? The Fantellas do sit in bronze medal position, but they may not know that right now.
Yeah, and it'll be, you know, are the Croatians looking for that to get more into that right pressure? Because really, they don't need to gamble at this point. They're in that bronze medal position.
If they knew. But
yeah.
Also, I mean, there are things out of their control, like will the Polish overtake the Chinese at the front? And there's all kinds of scenarios. But McCarty, right at the back of this fleet in 10th place, we're looking at them now, New Zealand 18, currently hold the bronze medal position.
Yeah, because the tracker, I think, likes their run down to their angle down to the mark a little bit better than the Croatians with that jibe set. So right now they have them basically tracking bow even, and they're giving it to the New Zealander boat. So it'll be interesting to see as they come together what happens there. And then again, there's always a battle with the Polish and the Chinese, and all of these things will come into play with these medals.
So the final run down to the finish, the Spanish just jibed. They were leading this race earlier. They're now sitting in 7th place, but they'll be keeping an eye on the boats behind them, the Kiwis that are front of our picture, and also the Croatians.
Yeah, so here we see the New Zealanders, but again, you know, the New Zealanders are sailing away from the pressure that they knew that got them back into the race. You can see here the Chinese have done a really good job of establishing their lead, and the Croatians have done a really good job of getting themselves back in the game here, and taking the Polish out of that play for the bronze medal. Because it looks like there is still quite a bit of right pressure, and the Chinese have walked away from the Polish.
Okay. I'd love to see a drone shot if we get a chance. I'd love to know how the Croatians are doing on that jibe set. It's there's still a lot left in this. There's a lot of place changing that could yet happen on the final half of this final run down to the finish of the 49er World Championship medal race. It's been a long, hard week, 6 days of intense competition on St. Margaret's Bay. They're the Austrians, Bildstein and Hussel, competing in their 10th consecutive World Championship.
Yeah, so you can see here the Chinese with the light blue kite coming in on a really nice line. They're a little bit above the ley line to the finish. There you can start to see some of the spectator boats at the finish line. The Croatians are the boat all the way up to the top of the screen, and they seem to be they've made a lot of gains on the rest of the boats over there on the right-hand side of the race course.
Quite an incredible turnaround by Croatia. We thought it was a gamble for, well, I suggested for no reason. Clearly, Šime Fantelli, an Olympic champion in the 470, along with his brother Miho, saw something that really attracted them about doing that jibe off, and it has this launched them up into the silver medal. It looks like things are dying out for them a little bit on the far side. If we can get down to the finish for the Chinese and look back upwind, that would be great. Firstly, we want to celebrate the fact that Wen and Liu are about to win the medal race. Quite a phenomenal achievement for a Chinese team competing for the first time ever in a 49er World Championship medal race. What a way to kick off your career, winning the last race of the 49er World Championships.
Unbelievable. I mean, everybody who's involved with this program has got to be really proud of these guys and really proud of the whole team that's gotten them to this point.
So congratulations to the Chinese. Incredible finish for them, and they must be so happy with that. Let's go back to the top view, if we can get the view of the rest of the fleet coming back in, because there's a lot riding on this, and we need to see who is going to take this silver medal. Is Lambriax and Van der Werken really up into second place? They've been at the back of the fleet most of the time. There are so many place changes on this final run to the finish. It's hard to make sense of it all, but I think we see the Croatians. Is that Croatia on with the black Jenica, or is that the Poles? I'm trying to work out who. I think that's the Polish about to come across
here
in second place.
Yeah, so the Croatians are the topmost. So they weren't quite able to get across this Polish boat and the Germans, and that has slipped them back into the bronze medal. So not quite. This is flipping back and forth as we get in, and it depends on these crosses. If Croatia can go all the way across and establish and make sure that they nail this jibe, they will be the silver medalists. They're on starboard tack, but they've got to make sure that they cross the line ahead of these two boats. This is all down to the wire for this medal. And
it looks like that blue Jenica coming down could get ahead. Is it Bildstein and Husel that are going to get ahead of the Croatians? Because if that happens, the Fantellas could lose the silver medal. Have they done enough? Well, I don't think we're going to know until a little bit after they cross. At the moment, they are down as having won the silver medal. But Botin and Trittle haven't finished yet. If Botin and Trittle can overtake a boat on the way down to the finish, then it would go to Spain. The silver medal could yet go to Spain. So the Croatians have crossed the line. They've done what they can. They are going to be looking back upwind to see how the positions play out. And look at that black Jenica coming in from the left-hand side. This could determine the outcome. Now, I think that is the Dutch world champions coming in. Spain have got just ahead of them, and it could be that is enough to give them the silver medal. I don't want to call this quite yet. It is right on the cusp. It could be
unbelievable finish.
Yeah, Spain, as it stands, might have won the silver medal back from the Fantellas, and it could be that they've just taken a place back right at the finish. I'm not going to commit myself any further than that. Than it appears that between them, Spain and Croatia have won a medal of some colour. I'm going to fully fence it. And while we get some confirmation on that, I just want to celebrate the victory in the medal race of Wen and Liu. The first time I think we've seen a Chinese team, well, definitely the first time a Chinese team had been in a medal race in a world championship, and not only that, but to win it. And then what a performance by Bart Lambriax and Floris van der Werken. We look at them there. They already knew that they got the gold medal. They had to go around the racetrack. We're not seeing out-and-out celebration from them quite yet, but they've had a bit of time to digest the fact that they've successfully defended their world title. The 2021 world champions become the 49er 2022 world champions. Bart Lambriax and Floris van der Werken.
I mean, what professionals, and they sailed an amazing series to lock this up really early on, and so they're a little bit calmer because it was well known what was going on before they even started this race. But interestingly enough, they were right in it, being one of the key deciders on the other medals, their placement in this whole race.
Yes, that's very true. And it's one of the complications of medal races that you've sort of got non-contenders influencing the outcome. But they did it very fairly. They're not to suggest they did anything they shouldn't have done. That is the standings. So confirmed as world champions, Lambriax and Van der Werken. These are provisional results. I must just to emphasize, at the moment, we believe it's Diego Botin and Florian Trittel that have taken the silver medal, just 2 points ahead of Shimmy and Miho Vantella. And those other teams, McCarty and McKenzie from New Zealand, at times had grasp of the medal, and also Chibatek and Piasecki from Poland as they went round the windward mark just behind China. They were leading that race going up to the final windward mark. They had one hand on the bronze medal. Quite incredible four-way battle for just 2 medals. But at the moment, we think it is Botin and Trittel from Spain that have got the silver, and the Vantella brothers who have the bronze.
Yeah, what an amazing race. And it's the psychology of the medal race is so interesting because, people didn't look like they were really trusting the pressure on the right, and they didn't want to get out there and leg it out. And every time somebody, looked like they were taking a risk, and they were going with what they saw, it was paying for them.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. It's really hard to know how much trust you could place in this wind, and I'm sure that the Nacra 17s that are gathering on the racecourse have been soaking up all the information and all the observation they could from the previous 2 races, from the FX and from the 49er medal races, because in a few minutes now it's going to be the turn of the Nacra 17 catamarans to have their go on this very, very tricky racecourse. So much place changing in that race, Lisa. Do we say that who was the smartest or who was the luckiest?
Oh, I don't even know if it was luck or smarts. I think it was more gut. The New Zealanders did a great job of getting right back in it, and I think they kind of showed the hand of what was actually working, and the Chinese as well, when they were getting their nose into that pressure on the right. And I got to hand it to the Croatians, really. I thought that they did everything possible that they could have done in that race to get themselves back into it. They played the left-hand side when it felt like it was working, and then they really gave it on the right, and they went all the way, and they almost had their hand on that silver medal. So I got to give it to the Croatians on this one.
I think I agree with you. I mean, they really took their chances. They saw opportunities where others hadn't spotted them, and very nearly converted up to a silver. But there were times when they weren't in the medals at all. So they'll be relieved to come away from these World Championships with some colour of medal, and it's going to be a bronze. Not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, especially a championship like this where it is so tight, especially, for these 2 medals, those 2 boats are going to be very happy to have something around their neck at the end of the day, I'm sure. And, and this is a great indicator for them going into the next 2 years, Olympic qualifying next year, and then leading into the games of where they're at and establishing themselves as true medal contenders.
So there are the Vantella brothers, and I'm not sure they know what they're going to celebrate yet. Hopefully they know they've got some colour of a medal. They're doing selfies.
Selfies.
Oh, that's a
Selfie
good
time.
sign.
Yeah,
That's a good sign.
So it's celebration time. No matter what the color, they're happy with their result. They're happy with what they've achieved and accomplished. There you go. There's the fist pumps. And they're going to take that home as the end of their 2022 season. Yeah,
great performance by the brothers. Shimmy Vantella, he's about 6 foot tall. I never know how he managed to fit in the back of a 470. He's been able to put on a bit more weight for the 49er, and lots of love hearts for his fans and family back home. They're big stars in Croatia. And one of the all-time greats, in Olympic sailing. And yeah, they're going to be talking to the Prime Minister of Croatia very shortly.
So here you can see a good shot of the race course, and you can see how flat that light is. It's not like on Friday when we were here with the sun shining, and we had another light northerly, but we could see a lot more pressure differences on the water, even though it was, similar wind velocities. So this is making it really tricky to sniff out those pressure differences. And here we have the fleet that's probably going to gain the most from being in more pressure. So we're going to see some interesting racing going on here with the Nacras, and they're all warming up, getting ready to go. And I'm sure there's some talk between the coaches to get some information between the teams and transferring over all that knowledge to ramp up for this next race.
And only 4 minutes to wait until the next race. So really getting into it very quickly and very fast turnabout around by the race committee. So do you think we're going to see any foiling today, Lisa?
Oh, I don't know. It's pretty light out there. In that 49er race, I did see up to 8 knots at times, but the cloud cover it doesn't look like it's going to give us anything. And that's really what you're looking for is there going to be some extra mixing from some sort of a downdraft that's going to give us something? Because this is the kind of day that it's not a strong gradient. So anything that we can see that's coming from up to down, that's where the wind's coming from. So so if we can see something low and dark, you're going to want to keep your eye on that for sure.
You can see the tricolor Jenica of Tita and Banty on the left of your screen. They have already won the gold medal. If we can get the leaderboard up for the Nacra 17s, we can just talk you through the scenarios that Lisa and I are going to be looking at very closely. But this is another one where the gold medal is already secured, and it's been an absolutely phenomenal performance. One of the all-time greatest performance in the more than 100 years history of Olympic racing. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that, would it, Lisa? Because the Italians, Tita and Banty, at 16 races, they've won 14 of them. They were second in another one of those races yesterday, and an anomaly of a 20th in those really light and funky races. But 14 out of 16 race victories.
No, and it is incredible because you don't want to take anything away from the extreme talent that they're dominating. And that's the thing I think that's so incredible about this. This is a very senior fleet. There are amazing sailors all the way through this fleet, and they are winning almost every single race, and it's unheard of. So, you see this in Opti regattas sometimes and some youth fleets, but you don't see this in Olympic class sailing at this level. It's unbelievable.
So we're going to have them racing around the track a bit like the Dutch 49er men, but perhaps more interestingly for this race, can we keep the leaderboard up just a little bit longer? Ugolini and Jubilee in second. If we can go back to the leaderboard. Kurt Bay and Keskinen and Gimpson and Burnett. They are the next three. They're on 82, 87 and 88 points respectively. 1 minute 30 to go. Thank you. So that's the scenario. Look at second, third and fourth. Really, really close on points, bearing in mind that every finish position in one of these medal races is worth 2 points. So Gimpson and Burnett are still very much capable of winning the silver medal in this, but it's there for Ugolini and Jubilee. They got silver at the last Worlds in Amman in 2021, last December. Can they hold on to that position? Chris, what do you think?
Well, easily between Kirpe and Keskinen and Gimpson and Burnett, it's a who beats who for a medal. It doesn't.
Well, it's a little bit more than that, but it's more or less that. We've got 55 seconds to go. Lisa, anything that they need to know and we need to know about the start line? Any bias to speak of?
Yeah, there is a little bit of bias. You can even see it here with the angle that the boats are sitting. It is a starboard bias. You can see that most of the boats want to be over on that right side. And I'm just wondering if that comes with a little bit of pressure. So wondering if we're going to see anybody early tack and trying to get into a little bit more right pressure. As my wind instruments over here that I can see are pulling the breeze a little bit further right. So we saw.
It's just 15 seconds to go, and it's really, really busy up by the committee boat. I don't see how all those boats up by the committee boat are going to get a clean start out of this. It looks far too congested. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Clear start, and closest to us are the Dutch, and then I think it's New Zealand further down. But someone has got a pretty ordinary start. It could be one of the Italians. If it's Tita and Banti, it doesn't really matter, but we will identify that Italian fairly soon, because one Italian boat has got a really good start, and there's one that's pretty far back.
Tita and Banti.
Tita and Banti. Okay, so Tita and Banti, not a great start for that. Lisa, who has got a good start out of this?
Yeah, well, the Italian team that we're watching here, Ugolini and Jubilee, they had a really nice start. You can just see them above the Swedish there. They were close to the favorite end of the line. They poked out really well, and surprisingly, I was expecting the British to be able to do a lot of lane holding here, because they are known for being able to sail high, and they're struggling a little bit after that start. They may have been a little bit late pulling the trigger, and so their speed might have been down. Now they're starting to be able to point a little bit, which is what we would like to be able to see from them. But they're a little bit bow back, and so the Italians right now are doing well at keeping their hand on that silver medal.
Ugolini and Jubilee, they seem like such a relaxed, fun pair when they're on the shore. But Gigi told me, they are really, really intense on the water. They take everything very seriously. And you can imagine right now the level of concentration on all these teams is really high. I think the one thing we have to remember is this is almost the lightest that we've seen. We were complaining about it being light yesterday at around 5 knots. We were complaining yesterday that between foiling upwind and not foiling upwind, that's hard conditions. They did get confirmation from these sailors that tacking is not as expensive on these boats, and we can see the technique on the Dutch boat really far forward. You don't want to drag anything in this. The boats are really narrow up front and really wide in the back. So when the boats are 2 hulls in the water, you want to get as much of the back of the bus out of the water as you can.
Yeah, and the wetted surface, you want to increase that as much as you can. The longer you can make those hulls, the better, because a longer hull goes faster, and they're basically down to hull speed right now. This is keelboat racing at its finest. So,
but with the New Zealand pair above them, occasionally that hull left out of the water, and then that gets rid of a lot of wetted surface area. So now, instead of talking about foiling and not foiling, we're talking about flying a hull and not flying a hull, with a perfect example here.
And suddenly the Dutch have an opportunity for that hull to lift out of the water, but it doesn't last very long. You can really see the acceleration as soon as you get that wetted surface area out of the windward hull and get to get out of keelboat sailing into old school catamaran sailing. But Lisa, it doesn't look like we're going to see any hydrofoiling today on the upwind legs.
No, I think the conversation's really going to be about 2 hull versus 1 hull, and even that switch between trying to get 1 hull out of the water, you do have to bear her off, and so you're giving up that distance, the VMG to the mark. So you've got to know when it's worth it to do it and when it's not.
So out on the right-hand side, Italy 26, gold medal already secure. Bissero and Frascari, Italy 71. But in the middle of the course and doing well, Italy 98, Ugolini and Jubilee. Really big separation. And Lisa, what do you reckon? A bit of a left-hand shift?
Yeah, so we did start in that hard right, and now the breeze has gone back left. And we'll see if the boats feel like, and they're all tacking in this now. So we're not even seeing boats trying to force the cross, except for GBR. GBR is really trying to get out. The British are going to try and get a nice clear lane. They can't cross the Italian boat on the other side of them, so they're going to have to go until the Italians decide to tack. And the Italians are doing a good job, because that's really their only worry about losing that silver medal.
So a bit of a lean over by GBR 21. Anna Burnett just briefly jumping onto the trapeze as Italy 98 tacks away, but GBR 21 getting some good breeze. They look like they could be the fastest boat on the water right now.
And here's the finish coming up. Now they're the other boat. Oh, and the Italians were going to get the cross. So they're the other boat that's looking for a medal. And so the bronze medal is basically goes to whoever crosses the line first between GBR and the finish. And so seeing them all here so close in this light air on this side of the race course, it's going to be interesting as they get up to the mark.
And so the Dutch on the left of your screen going along very nicely at the moment. And Ugolini and Jubilee in the middle of the screen, Italy 98, also with a hull lifted. And down to leeward of them are the team from Finland, Kurtbay and Keskinen. So Kurtbay and Keskinen with quite a lot to do at the moment if they're to get back into the medals. Gibson and Burnett, they're just off the bottom of our screen at the moment, are holding the bronze medal position as we look at things right now.
You can see the dynamic positions of the crew. The Dutch crew right now, she's all the way in by the bow striker, which is underneath the water in the middle of the boat. The dolphin striker. She's all the way forward, but still trapping, trying to get some pull on the on her trap harness up all the way up to the top of the mast. Oh, and we've got the first boat around the windward mark going for the offset. And that's the Kiwis.
Yeah, that's the Kiwis. Wilkinson and Dawson with a clear lead at the moment. And some of the boats on the left-hand side of the course have overstood, but they're still better off than the boats on the right-hand side. Yeah. The best breeze has come in from the left.
And the British are looking for a pin here. So, and they're not going to get it. So the British were really trying to get an overlap on the Italians to try and pin them so that they could get around the mark first. But they were able to squeeze out a rounding in front of the Swedish.
Yeah. So well, it's Sweden in second at the moment, and it's Italy 98, our current silver medal holders Ugolini and Jubilee doing enough to keep the silver medal as things stand at the moment. And so the Swedes go round, they get the Jenica set, and now going round in third place, it's Italy 98. Just off to the right of picture, you can see the Kiwis leading this race, and they're fully up and foiling, stretching away from the rest of the fleet. And it's the Dutch going round in fourth place with John Gibson and Anna Burnett just ahead of Finland. So it's these two teams battling it out for the bronze medal right now.
You can see the wind has picked up a little bit. We're getting readings of 7 knots, 6 knots, and we were all the way down to 5. So they're going to be able to get the boats going a little bit more on this downwind. But these teams are really going to be careful about sailing out of this pressure. This is going to be really key for this downwind.
So Gibson will be happy to be ahead of Kurtbay and Keskinen. Ugolini and Jubilee further forwards are doing enough to hold on to the silver medal. Looks like the Brits are just about to get the boat foiling. They're changing mode, and they see that all the boats ahead of them are now in slow hydrofoiling mode.
Yeah, so they may feel like sometimes when they do that quick little skitter with their rudders, they're trying to kick weeds off. Those weeds, especially at these slow speeds, those weeds can be death. So if they feel any kind of pull on the rudders or on the helm, they're going to try and kick those weeds off.
It looks really hard work getting the boat up onto the foils in just 5 or 6 knots of breeze. But look how fast they go. What kind of speeds are they doing now in such light winds?
Yeah, so this British boat that we're looking at right now is almost doing 12 knots. So those are incredible speeds for 7 knots of breeze.
Yeah, amazing. But look at the Italians at the top of your screen. They have jibed and they've dropped off the foils, and it takes a while to get the boat back up on the hydrofoils. So every maneuver is potentially very expensive. Yeah,
and we didn't watch this the racing in the early race this morning, but the British did a really good job of their last run, passing 4 boats to get this close to be able to attack for these medals. And so, you know, they've got to know that it's not over until it's over. And I'm sure they're going to be taking that into this race to try and make something happen here.
We see Ugolini and Jubilee following them down. They're in second place in this race because already coming upwind, an absolute country mile ahead of everybody else. It is Wilkinson and Dawson from New Zealand. And Wilkinson and Dawson only doing 7 or 8 knots upwind, compared with much faster speeds, about 12 or 13 knots for Ugolini and Jubilee.
Yeah, 13 and a half knots right now for Ugolini and Jubilee. These boats really fly downwind, and they're really balanced. You can see that they've got things tracking. They're not squirrely at all, and they're really doing a good job of managing their weight. The more they can attack things with their weight, the less they have to do with their helm.
Right. Minimize steering wherever possible. Do it with body weight and sail trim, but mostly those sails look pretty tightly trimmed all the time. And now, which one are they going to choose? They're going to go for the jibe drop, and this is how the best in the world do the jibe drop. So they shave that mark. They miss it by centimeters, and now they've done a full 180 turn, starboard tack up onto the beat. Looks like they've still got to flip the top batten in the mainsail, but that will come through fairly soon. That's the scenario overall. And Tita and Banty, the gold medalists, they're up into 5th place. So there are some changes afoot. And Gimpson and Burnett have a bit of a drop back, but fortunately for them, so do the Finns. So Gimpson and Burnett looking like they're shadowing whatever the Finns are doing.
Yeah, it does look like they're sticking with them. I think they've given up on the silver medal, and they're just making sure that they've got something around their necks when they leave this boat park today.
Yeah. So Ugolini and Jubilee doing such a good job in 2nd place in this race. It looks like 2nd place is going to be enough to give them 2nd place overall for the 2nd year running. The silver medalists from 2021. Round the yellow leeward mark, bottom left, that is the Dutch going round in 3rd. That's how big the gaps are now. Vandermeer and Bauer in 3rd, and a long way back to Jeruden, Jonsson and Majdalani and Bosco, who are on a converging course on port and starboard. It's the Argentinians with the blue Jenica and the Swedes being forced to jibe earlier than they would like to. So that's a really downspeed jibe for the Swedes.
So the British here, looks like they've sailed out of the pressure. Something's gone a little bit wrong as they've come across, and the Swedes have made a big gain on them. It looks like they were able to just soak with a little bit more pressure, and I think the Swedes have got them at this mark now.
I think you mean the Finns.
Finns, sorry.
So the Finns are now next to the tricolor Jenica of Tita and Banty, and if there's any consolation for Gimpson and Burnett, it's that the gold medalists from Italy are slowing down the progress of Kurt Bay and Keskinen. But even so, this is not good news for the British, because this could well put the Finns back into bronze medal position on a really, really tight rounding. The Australians having to jibe away to give space to Gimpson and Burnett, but the British are now behind the Finns, and this is not what they wanted.
No. I'm just wondering if they had some disturbed air from all those kites that they were going across, and they just looked slow, and they had to come up to get some speed. That was a costly separation that they ended up having with the Finns. So
basically, it's a who beats who scenario between Britain and Finland, so it's tense moments for the British. But we've seen what they can do in terms of pulling back the scores at the end of these races. We saw that earlier this morning. Well, we didn't see it live, but as Lisa was saying, it was a really good recovery by Gimpson and Burnett on the final run to the finish in race 16 this morning, and they'll be hoping they can pull a similar cat out of the bag in this race now.
Yeah, so the breeze has gone again pretty far left. The New Zealanders are already at the mark.
Amazing. So you'd think this was Tita and Banty, the way they're so far ahead of the rest of the fleet. But no, this is Micah Wilkinson and Erica Dawson from New Zealand, who are just showing a clean pair of heels to the rest of the fleet. Maybe they've tacked a little bit too early. There's been such a wind shift in this race. They may not even be able to make the spacer mark in one. That's the spacer mark on the right of screen. And it looks like they are a little bit shy of ley line, so it might have to be a couple more tacks for the Kiwis. But they've got so much distance in the bank, it's not really going to matter. But now they're lifting up, and it looks like they should make it in one.
Yeah, it's been a huge left shift, and it's kind of making this second beat a little bit of a drag race for the rest of the fleet. which is not what the British wanted to see, because the Finnish boat is doing a good job of staying on top of them, giving them a little bit of bad air, and then, forcing them to follow them all the way across from the left-hand side into the mark.
That's right. And also, it's very highly likely this is going to be a straight set with not much real opportunity for a jibe set gamble down the final run. Good hoist by the Kiwis, and really nice branding. And there's Michael Wilkinson showing off his bare feet. The Kiwis love sailing barefooted, and I've never quite understood why, but it looks good.
So here you can see our regatta leaders and gold medalists. They're just about to reach the windward mark as well. The New Zealanders have gotten away from them, but still finishing in style.
Yeah, Italy 98 looking very comfortable up at the front. And how are things playing out, do you think, between Finland and Great Britain? Because it looks like Great Britain might actually have got some air underneath the Finns. Maybe the British charge isn't over yet.
Yeah, so it just looks like they might have a little bit of breathing room, but every now and then I think the Finnish are doing a very good job of holding their lane, and they did this right after the mark as well, holding their lane on the British and really not giving them any. Now you can see the Finnish are hurting the British, and this is going to be a tough go for them.
Right, so maybe it is game, set, and match already between Finland and Great Britain. We'll see. It does look like Finland's able to sail down a little bit and get down onto the breeze of the British, and that's really going to start hurting Gimpson and Burnett.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that, goes to the British favor is that there they go. They're going to have to tack out. Is that when you're downwind, you've got a little bit more control as the boat behind. If they can stay behind, these maneuvers are really costly, and this is exactly, I think, what the Finnish wanted them to do.
Yeah, it's a tack of desperation. Gimpson and Burnett really didn't want to do that, but they couldn't afford to live in the bad air of the Finns, and there's not much ley line left, so they've really got to tack back again fairly soon.
Yeah, I mean, this was what we'd call a tack down the ladder rung. They didn't really get anywhere. They didn't make a lot of gain as far as leverage is concerned, and now they're just further behind.
Yeah, and a little bit of a threat from Bissero and Frascari in the front of your screen. Italy 71. Looks like Britain is up to speed again. The Finns have actually gone down a bit, and they've headed enough to want to tack. So they're not leaving anything to chance. They want to keep this tight with Great Britain, and they're prepared to do two more tacks, two more down-speed tacks. Quite risky in its own way, but maybe the safer option for Kurt Bay and Keskinen.
Yeah, and they may be trying to hurt them again. They're not tacking directly in front of them. They're tacking a little bit above them. So I think they're just trying to get as many boat lengths between them as they possibly can.
Yeah, and maybe that's good positioning by Finland. It's enough potentially to hurt Britain, but maybe it leaves the door open for Italy still to get up on the shoulder of Great Britain. I think that's pretty smart positioning, and then it heads again for Finland. And whether it lifts or heads now, I don't see any way round the finish for Great Britain.
Yeah, no, not right now. I mean, the British are just trying to close the gap, close the distance, so they can try and make something happen on the downwind. Match racing rules, you want to try and keep the race as long as possible if you're the boat behind. So, they're going to be trying to increase the number of maneuvers that both boats do, and trying to, make something happen where maybe it wouldn't if they were just sailing straight line.
Now, if there is actually a header going on here, does that mean there's more of a chance of a jibe set, and it's opened up the possibilities on the last downwind leg?
Yeah, potentially. And here we go. Nice call. We can see that the Dutch have jibed early after the mark. So yeah, that might be an indicator that there might be something there for the British to kind of link into and make something happen on this downwind.
So the Dutch have jibe set, but look how little wind there is. Maybe that is the last opportunity for Great Britain, that it's so light that things could go completely unpredictable. As things stand, however, It's Finland who tack on to the ley line, and they tack a little bit above the ley line because they got to make that spacer mark as well. Great Britain will tack soon onto the line of Finland.
And you can see the New Zealanders down here are just about to win the medal race.
So what a way to finish for Wilkinson and Dawson from New Zealand. Just doing a last jibe, really, really light winds. And they sailed really well in the ridiculously strong winds of the very first race of the championship 6 days ago as well. So proving that they can race a Nacra 17 very effectively at both ends of the wind range.
Yeah, not surprising that the Kiwis were really strong in the heavy breeze, but this must be nice too, to just be like, we're not a one-trick pony.
Yeah, no, really showing that they're very adaptable. So well done to Micah and Erica. And next down, it's going to be Ugolini and Jubilee in second place, and that is going to secure them the silver medal for the second year running. The young Italians trying to catch up to the standard of Ruggero Tita and Caterina Banti that have already won the gold medal, but they're going to be top Italian in this race anyway, and a silver medal for second year running shows that they are one of the class acts in the Nacra 17. And the breeze, as we see them come down, it looks like there's a little bit more to the breeze now.
Yeah, the breeze has popped up to 6 knots. And again, it'll be interesting to see if there's just a little bit more on the right there where the Dutch went. And I think the Dutch made some gains on that downwind doing that jibe set. So behind the Finnish jibe rounding first, were able to make their call on what they wanted to do, and they chose the jibe set. So they said to the British behind, this is what we think is going to happen. We're going to take the opportunity to take it first, and we're not going to let you have it.
Okay, right. So good defensive sailing there by Finland. But the British will be doing whatever they can for that split to open up and just hope that the split goes their way.
Yeah, so here you can see the Dutch down at the bottom of the screen, able to jibe in front of the Italians, Argentinians, and the Swedes, establishing their spot in third place in this medal race. And the British are really hoping that as this new breeze settles in, maybe it clicks a little bit right as you approach the mark. If the breeze is consistent all the way across the race course, if it clicks a little bit right, they're going to have a nicer angle than the finish.
Yeah, so it's a possibility that Great Britain could still overtake for the bronze medal. And the split now is enormous between Finland and Great Britain. So it's down somewhat to a roll of the dice. Both teams will be looking upwind to see if they've made the better call. But look at the gap now.
Yeah, it's quite substantial. I mean, based on the drone footage, it does look like there's a little bit more breeze on the right. So, but again, you know, it's really hard to tell with this flat light we've got here.
It certainly doesn't look great for Great Britain. As you see, Anna Burnett sitting well down to leeward. There really isn't much for them to work with. They're going into a downspeed jibe.
Yeah.
And
the tracker has the British going a little bit faster just before their jibe, you know, by a 0.2 of a knot, but the speeds are low. So let's see, any bit of breeze at this point is going to make one boat go quite a bit faster than the other. So they're just, you know, trying to do some wind whispering right now and, you know, trying to just will the gust to come their way.
And they're a little bit heel to windward. It looks like Anna Burnett hasn't moved down to the leeward side of the boat. So I'm surprised that they're not trying to get a little bit more leeward heel into the boat. And Finland on the far side. Kurtbay and Keskinen looking to secure a medal at the Nacra 17 World Championships for Finland. As down to the finish, it's Netherlands 5:05, a long way back in third place, but nevertheless, third place, a great finish for Van der Meer and Bauer. Bauer sitting right up on the leeward front of the leeward pontoon.
Yeah, and they did a great job of establishing their position on this run, hooking into that little bit of pressure, and coming in front of this group here to gain third place. Behind this group, the Finnish have now jibed. So the two boats that we've been talking about are now coming back together after that huge split that they had down this run. And I think the Finnish might still have it, but it's definitely close. You know, the British have done what they can to make this a race, and we'll see what happens as they approach each other.
So at the moment, Kurt Bay and Keskinen a little bit faster on their side of the race course by about 0.5 of a knot, as Jaruden Jonsson from Sweden go across in fourth place. And here is the tricolor Jenica that has led so many of the races this week, nearly every single race. Tita and Banti confirmed already as the world champions, the same title that they won back in 2018, and then the Olympic gold medal last year in Tokyo 2020, followed by Argentina's Magdalena and Bosco across the line in sixth. So congratulations to Ruggero, Tita and Caterina Banti, and also to their teammates Ugolini and Jubilee, who have already got the silver medal. And now we turn our attention back to the battle for bronze. And the fact that the British have jibed away does not speak well of their confidence for the breeze on that side of the racecourse.
No, I mean, the British are, again, they're just trying to make this race as long as possible. So they weren't going to make that cross with the Finnish. And so they're trying to get any leverage that they possibly can to make something happen. So there's no benefit for them to go at the Finnish and solidify a loss by taking their stern. And they've got to try and make something happen. But the Finns are in something there, and they're soaking down pretty close to the finish line. So I think that that may be the end of medal hopes for Britain.
So Sinem Kirkbay and Akseli Keskinen, they're just moments away from a bronze medal here at the World Championships. And Lisa, we still don't see that many female helms, but Sinem Kirkbay, third in this regatta, she's going to be the highest performing female helm. Do you think we'll see that trend increase?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, with the loads on this boat, you know, that would be my pick for how I would put the strength weight ratio and the physical attributes of the athletes. So, you know, hope that more female helms will get into this class, not be afraid by the speed, because it's really exciting. And I kind of wish it was around when I was doing my campaigns. But yeah, great work by the Finns, and nice to see, you know, a medal going around a female helm's neck here.
So congratulations to the Finnish team across the finish line. Big hug between Sinem Kirkbay and Akseli Keskinen, and a job well done, beating the last year's world champions, who now finished just outside of the medals, John Gimpson and Anna Burnett, the Olympic silver medalists. The 2021 world champions will be disappointed to finish in fourth place, but they fought hard against these new bronze medalists from Finland.
Yeah, wow, they've got to be really happy with that finish. That was well fought. And there they go. Big celebrations with this boat, and well-deserved for sure.
Oh, brilliant. So that goes to show how much it means to that team from Finland. They've done the big swim, and absolutely brilliant performance.
Now, I checked the shark watch this morning, and
yes, of course.
It doesn't seem like they've moved into the bay, so I think they're safe.
So we're watching the next few come across the line. So
this is the Brits here.
That's the British with the white Jenica have just crossed the line. They'll take fourth in this regatta. Gimpson and Burnett being coached here by Ian Percy, the 3-time Olympic medalist, and these guys are here to win. That's the only thing that's good enough for them, and they will be going back to the drawing board and working out what it is that the Italians in particular are doing better than them at the halfway stage of this Olympic cycle, or I say maybe only the third way stage, because we've only had 3 years between the Tokyo Games and Paris 2024.
Yeah, it's a compressed cycle for sure, and that makes it even more challenging for this Nacra class. And we've been talking about moding all week, and I can see that there's going to be maybe some schedule changes and a lot of training time going in for these Nacra teams to really get the feel for how they can get these boats getting up to speed, getting those extra knots out when they're in full foil mode, and getting the bow down. That's going to be key for these teams.
Chris, you've been out and about. Have you managed to speak to anybody in your travels?
Absolutely. We've spoken to the top 3 in the FX. We've spoken to the top 3 in the 49er. Lots of emotion out there. The last person I talked to was Shime Mihoville. There was a moment where they were in gold. There was a moment where, bronze, and then the silver, then no medal at all. And they gave the Spanish Botín and Triddle Paul a big hug at the end. 1 point away. Awesome sportsmanship, lots of emotion. I think, you're going to see the same thing when the Nacras come into shore here. We saw the entire Italian team eating dinner last night together, but there's still going to be a lot of emotion.
All right, we'll come back to that in a moment. Let's just round up these preliminary results, not fully confirmed, but we're pretty certain that it's Kurtbay and Keskinen from Finland that take the bronze medal behind 2 Italians, Ugolini and Jubilee, getting silver medal for the 2nd World Championships in a row. And then the 2018 World Champions, the 2020 Olympic champions, Ruggiero, Tita and Katerina Banti, absolutely dominating this week in Nova Scotia to win an Olympic class world title by perhaps one of the most dominant performances we've ever seen. Okay, so Chris, just coming back to your conversations, who are you catching up with again?
Cool. As we collect all these interviews, I think one that sticks out in my mind is from the FX, the silver medal winners from Sweden, Bobek and Netzler. Really emotional, and I said, Ben, wow, they were in tears, and he's like, tears of joy. I'm like, no. So the emotions are running really high in all these fleets where the gold wasn't determined. The Swedish put themselves in a perfect position to get gold. They're a really young team. Even Barry, our measurer, gave her a big hug. So let's go to that tape. Well, congratulations, silver medalists, the World Championships, and you gave yourselves every shot in the world to do great and to win the World Championships.
Yes.
You came up a little short, and you did everything you could, even off that start, and that beat looked great, but that shift lasted a long time, didn't it?
Yeah, we thought it would maybe we could get back in the track, but we saw quite early that was it for this race, and we just had to kind of get around the course still. But we gave it all in the start, which we said that we were going to do. It didn't work this time, but hopefully next time.
Yeah, your exit came out so well, but a lot of emotion. You two are really young still, so how do you feel right now?
Yeah, I think especially me experiencing quite a lot of emotions at the moment. We really badly wanted the gold, and we gave it everything we had. Didn't quite get there this time, but we're still very happy with silver at the Worlds. It's like our first Worlds together, with 6 months in the boat together, so we're happy for the future.
That's absolutely fantastic. I think the one thing that everyone in the studio and people who've been cheering for you said your attitude is fantastic, and everyone knows attitude is what carries you through, so I know it's going to carry you guys through to great things, so congratulations on your silver.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that was really fantastic to see that emotion, lots of respect for each other. Right after that, we interviewed Tamara and Paula, Spain 23, and we'll go to that, and they have some advice after they talk about their winning of the bronze medal. 2022 World Championships, the medal race, the bronze medalists, a little anticlimactic. You had the bronze medal sewed up. When you came here, you couldn't lose it, but you also couldn't move forward. So Paula, tell me, that's a little unique situation in the FX fleet, isn't it?
Just gonna get
Yeah, I think it's a
think of
strange
anything.
feeling going to a medal race with no
just
chance to move
one last
forward and
thing.
need a power, because sometimes
one
it's,
last
well,
observation for the
usually
week.
it's really
Doesn't matter
tight on
which part of the
points
week.
and you feel
Yeah.
a lot of pressure. But yeah, we enjoyed the last race. We tried to do our best. There was a big shift in the first upwind and we couldn't climb up a lot, but yeah, we sailed I think really well and we are pretty happy with our result.
Awesome. Tamara, you're a two-time world champion. You have a bronze medal. And both of you have been going through your degrees, your studies. You finished your studies. You're still studying. Is there a big part of you that's proud of this bronze medal and with what you've accomplished this week?
Yeah, we are so proud of this medal. I think that the other two teams deserve to win this gold and silver medal, and for us it's really nice. We had doing another things like studies and stop a little bit after the Olympics because we need to unwind a little bit, rest, and thinking about the future. For sure, I had to do more than Paula because I've been doing Olympic campaign for a long, so just needed time to think about the future. So I think that not a lot of training for us, and I think that we did a really good racing here. We are so proud and we are so happy for coming back, for sailing together, for enjoying with this amazing fleet, and
for this bronze medal.
And I know you have the Diego and Florian are duking it out for medals right now, for a silver medal potentially for them as we sit here. So the country's really strong. And for you, we talked in Denmark about getting back into the boat, finding your new level, finding what, looking what everyone else's level is. Since Denmark, at the end of this week, have you identified some new heights that you want to reach in your progress?
Yeah, I think there are many things still to work on. We had a really nice week sailing here, but still a lot to work. I think that one strongest point for the team is that we have been sailing together for long and we know each other really well. So I think that in this kind of championship that the pressure is always on board, like we managed this really well, so that's why the result, but for sure we need to work a lot on technique. And we will do it.
Yeah, we need to remember some things for sure, because it's fine that when you are in the middle of the fleet and say, now I understand. But I remember, I'm late. But I think that it's nice to have this kind of feeling, and for sure to know that we have a lot of little things to work, because it's a
good motivation.
Yeah.
Well, I think the rest of the fleet is probably not going to be happy to hear that you have so much more improvement left. So, but that's fantastic. It just shows how high and how hard all these sailors push. The Swedish team is really young, and they put themselves in a perfect position to possibly win. They ended up second. They were very emotional. What kind of advice do you give to those young campaigners that get so close very early on?
For me, it's to be patient. So I think that it's for them a really good result. They deserve it. So I think that Odila did really good all the week. So it's just to be patient. But in this kind of situation, it's like that you get it but not. I think that it's a full motivation for the next time. So just to be patient, and for sure, keep working.
The way the journey until the Olympics is really, really far. So and long. So it's always up and down. You have to take the learning from the down, and when you are up, just calm and keep on going.
Well, I won't take up any more of your time. Congratulations on your bronze medal. Congratulations on your degrees. Good luck with the rest of your studies.
Thank you
Do
so
your
much.
homework. And a bronze medalist from the 49er FX World Championships 2022. And we'll go back to the studio.
Chris, you have just the best job, don't you? Interviewing the best sailors in the world, and also some of the friendliest as well. Just brilliant athletes and a privilege for us to be involved with here.
Absolutely. I mean, the only reason I'm out there is because I'm not smart enough to analyze the races like you two. But it is an awesome job. I mean, I tell all my friends this is the greatest greatest gig in the whole world. You have an equal mix of men and women. They're all smart. They're all driven. They're all strong. And they're all really nice people. So we're really privileged to be a part of these championships in these classes.
Lisa, it's been a privilege to get to know you over the last week. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm just going to ask you to highlight one thing that has really stood out to you this week.
Well, I mean, thanks. It's been a great meeting you guys as well, and working with such a good team here. I'm just going to say, as a Nova Scotian, it's been a pleasure and an honor to host this whole championships here in Nova Scotia. I know that Hubbard's and the whole community, all the way from Halifax down to Lunenburg, has had a great time having all these sailors here. Everybody's been connecting with the regatta downtown Halifax, here at the Shore Club today, watching the feeds and coming out and just walking the boat park and being out on the water. In some of the drone shots, you see that there's been a lot of spectator boats out there. Some getting a little close to the race course, but there's some keen sailors here who really appreciate this high level sailing happening in our little neck of the world, and hopefully we'll see this kind of racing here again. Hopefully the Nacras and the 49ers, this isn't the last time they're going to be here, and it's been a pleasure for me to be involved with this championship.
And you, Chris, just pick out one highlight from the week.
Yeah, I mean, besides like the awesome footage that we've been able to watch, I mean, it's the first time I've ever really been able to look closely at the best sailors in the world in their best form. I think that's an absolute privilege to see. But I think my biggest takeaway is just observing with my lucky job of interviewing people, like you said, is just noticing the composure of all these athletes, how controlled they are, and how they have an amazing perspective to be comfortable in the position that they're in their journey, their Olympic journey. Lisa knows what it's all about. It's a lot of highs and lows. And there's just such a maturity in this fleet, all the way down to the really happy Canadians in the Nacra fleet who were, filling up the bottom of the fleet, but they were soaking it all in and really happy to be here. So just the composure and just the real great perspective that the athletes have is really inspiring.
I'm going to say a big up to skiff sailing in the Netherlands, a double world title win in the 49er and the 49er FX, but Tita and Banty could be one of the all-time greats based on the performance that we've seen today. So that's it. That's the conclusion of these sailors' most important part of the year. And we've watched 6 amazing days of racing on the beautiful waters of St. Margaret's Bay. It's 2 years to the Paris 2024 Games. If you want to keep on following the progress of these amazing athletes, make sure that you like and subscribe on 49er.org and nacra17.org and keep seeing what these guys do throughout the year, not just at this World Championship. I just want to repeat what you said about Nova Scotia. Absolutely wonderful people. The local volunteers of Hubbard's in particular have made us feel so welcome. You've welcomed us like family. So thank you, Lisa, and to everyone else from Nova Scotia. And thanks to all the crew, the backroom boys and the people out there on the water, the boys and girls that are bringing us these amazing images from the sky and from the water level. You two have been fantastic. And that's all we have to say from me, Andy Rice, from Chris Musler. I can't see that. I'm looking at myself on screen. Anyway, you know who you are. That's Lisa. That's Chris. I'm Andy Rice. Thanks for watching, and see you again on the 49er FX and Nacra 17 tour. See you soon.